Well, there goes the Daverhood. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to a brand new, exciting, and thrilling edition of the Dave's Gone By Facebookio, Podcastio, Programmio of the stream with me, Dave Lefkowitz, my darling and adorable wife, Joyce, and all the usual unusuals that we do here every Saturday morning from the radio podcastio Daverhood. My wife just started the watch party. Let's see, we've got...
Show them your name, who you are.
We've got Susanna tuning in, Tony, my name, of course, Dave Lefkowitz. That was my press pass when I went to the convention about a week ago. I wasn't here last Saturday, so I'm going to be extra voluble, extra garrulous today, because always when I take a week off, I get even more verbal. I'm like, I couldn't talk for 3 hours last Saturday. I had to listen to other people talking to me, which is the most boring thing in the world. Well, no, I talked to them, but I go to this conference, this Radio Television Institute, the National Publicity Conference. And so one after another, they come to me and pitch me.
Joel, Richard, and Daniel.
Welcome to Joel, Richard, and Daniel, by the way, and to Michael and Janine, of course, and Suzanne and Tony and Lawrence and Cynthia, cousin Cynthia. Yes, we will have our quiz today. But here's the deal. So twice a year, I am very kindly invited by the folks at the National Publicity Summit in New York, which is essentially gathering all these folks who are in media and writing for magazines and newspapers and doing podcasts and doing actual old-fashioned terrestrial radio shows and television as well. Sorry, what?
They write books.
They write books. Well, those people are the people who are trying to get on to talk to, quote-unquote, us VIPs in the media. So we stand there for about 2.5 hours as one after another they come to pitch and to try and be on this program, which is kind of cool.
What?
I'm sorry, the what?
They come to what?
They try to be on this program, which is neat. Which is
you were doing that.
which is very flattering. As my wife had actually a piece of oatmeal clinging to her chin, so I'm trying to go like, yeah. It's like I'm miming the deaf thing for Bunny Rabbit.
Yeah.
So Janine, by the way, and welcome to Michael and Ralph and another Michael.
And Alan and Paul and Jamie.
I've got 2 mics here, or 3 if you count the one I'm talking into, and Jamie, and all these cool folks. So, because of the kind of program that this is, where we mix culture and talk and humor and stuff like that, I try to find my own guests from the music and theater and arts field.
Didn't you invite Dolomite?
No, I didn't. We'll talk about that in a mo. But I also go to this convention so that I can find other people. And sometimes you find people who are creative or in the arts or just have real funny stories to tell. So in the weeks ahead, I'll probably grab a couple of people that I met last Saturday at this conference that I go to. But that's why I was gone last week. That's why I have this lovely press pass. Isn't that exciting? See Dave Lefkowitz?
I think it was printed on a laser printer even.
No. Yeah. They've given up the dot matrix?
It's not color, but it's pretty.
Because they had this old woman named Dot Matrix, who would by hand do calligraphic press passes for all us in the VIP room. And so I guess I've gotten rid of her. That's so sad.
She went to Jesus.
But I do want to thank Bradley Communications for that. But anyway, that's where I was a week ago. But now I'm back here. And I do a little program, a little podcastio of the Streamio. It's called Dave's Gone By. And we like to sort of begin it. If I can just get the beginning on here. Just like this.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. There goes the Daverhood. And there was much rejoicing.
Didn't your meds kick in yet?
We got David Lefkowitz here. He's a Long Island Arts guy. He's got his own radio show.
I want you all to really enjoy a wonderful program done by a fine artist.
A glorious thing of unparalleled beauty.
Dave's Gone By. Dave is one of my very favorite broadcasters, so keep on listening to Mr. Dave.
fruit fight.
Yeah. Well, as I said, here goes the Daverhood, because it's Dave's Gone By with me, Dave Lefkowitz, and we are here in the Daverhood every Saturday from 9 in the morning until noon or thereabouts. What was that?
Not every Saturday.
Well, as I said, I missed last Saturday. We're probably here about 48 to 49 or 50 Saturdays a week doing what we do, mixing humor and talking music and interviews and all that cool kind of stuff. Our usual unusuals, as I've begun to call it. And let me tell you what's going to be on the show, then we'll banter a little bit. We'll get to, well, one of the things we do on the show is Greeley Crimes and Old Times. And what's really wonderful is that a couple of months ago, we were high and dry because our local paper back in Greeley, Colorado, where we've been from for a few years, was really falling down on the job of the columns that we enjoy and poke fun, not so much at, because the columns are funny in themselves, but poke fun with, about Coplog, and it's, it's 100 years ago, and we call that Greeley Crimes and Old Times, and they weren't publishing, they weren't doing enough. So I complained to, literally, on the folks who were writing it for the paper, and they got back up on the stick. And now, because I was away last week and because we have other things to do in the show, I've got this backlog of coplogs and of 100 years ago things. So we've got a nice, juicy Greeley Crimes and Old Times coming at you today, which is, by the way, November 2nd, 2019.
2219.
2219. And we are doing the 719th edition of Dave's Gone By. This is literally the 719th show that we've done since October of 2002 when we first went on the airwaves. And by the way, welcome to Michael and Jay and Raymond, of course, and Tim and Eileen. A lot of the same faces, which is wonderful. Also love seeing new faces too, who are tuning in from 9 until noon to see what we do. Well, we do Greeley Crimes and Old Times. We also do, and I know Cynthia and Jeff are here, the Today Yesterday quiz. So if you know your November 2nds, we've had a few of them. And since probably...
Isn't it Day of the Dead still?
Is it?
Yeah, Day of the Dead.
I thought Halloween...
No, I think it's till November 2nd.
That is my wife, by the way, my darling, adorable wife, Joyce, who is saying that November 2nd is Dia de los Muertos. So what do they actually do?
I think it's a derivation of All Saints and All Souls, where you honor the dead.
How?
By giving...
To dig them up and
No,
give them a
I think
coffee?
you give
Or
offerings to the grave.
Ooh, like, when they pour tequila on Jim Morrison's grave, that's like a day. Yeah. Joyce, we're going to look up.
Right here.
Oh, is it a Google thing where they're Day of the Deading? Let's see.
It says mostly central and southern regions of Mexico.
There's Dawn of the Dead, which we celebrate in the mall.
Multi-day holiday involves family gatherings to pray for and remember friends and family who have died, and helping support them on their spiritual journey. Death is a natural part of life. It's not sadness,
Wow.
but because loved ones are to wake loved ones and celebrate with them.
Well, so, okay, that's kind of nice. I mean, it's a nice way of looking at death.
And it's called Dia de Muertos.
Yeah. Actually, I think
It's a
our friend
holiday.
Stephen was at the, I forget what they call themselves now, but the remnants of the Grateful Dead did a concert in New York, I think yesterday. So that is pretty appropriate. What the hell are they called? Not Live Dead, but Dead Alive, Dead Again, Debt Ceiling.
Sugar skulls, cardboard skeletons, tissue paper,
Right.
fruits and nuts, incense, and traditional foods.
What do fruits and nuts have to do with dead people?
They're good in oatmeal.
I mean, when you're dead, your nuts shrivel, so that's what happens.
David,
I'm just saying.
how do you know?
Actually, I don't know. I
What
don't.
do you know about biology?
not a darn thing, actually. And tissue paper. What does tissue paper have to do with the dead? Except your skin, I guess, turns into a crepey sort of tissue paper before it rots and dissolves, and you're just bones. We're having some fun on Dave's Gone By, aren't we? Anyway, so on this Dia de los Muertos,
Dia de Muertos.
not Los, it's just
No, the
Muertos.
Mexican is Dia de Muertos.
Dia de Muertos. Okay.
Look.
Okay, I trust you.
And it says here, Dia
Yeah.
de Muertos.
And it's a Mexican thing only, or is it all
Mexican.
South America and Latin America?
Mexican.
Okay, cool. Neat. So,
Would you like to see a video?
no, I do not want to see a video. But I want to tell people also Our yesterday quiz. So things that happened on November 2nd through history.
Uh-oh.
I'll give you some hints, some clues, and then you have to play essentially against Cynthia and Jeff in our trivia quiz, and that's kind of fun. We'll also have story time. Oh boy, we will be returning to this book.
Not the fish fart.
Yes, but hon, it is the finale.
Thank God.
This is the
When do we get to burn it?
we don't burn books here. We're not in that kind of country yet. But it's Why Fish Fart by Francesca Gould. We've literally been reading it cover to cover, and we're all the way towards the very end of a book that includes chapters like, do jackals really feed their offspring with their own vomit? The answer to that I think we kind of knew is
What's
yes.
Warbasack?
What is what?
Warbasack.
I have no idea. What is Warbasack? We've got, I don't know, what else we have here? Why do herring fart? Because Joyce complained week after week that you've got a book called Why Fish Fart, the title, and there's nothing about fish farting until page 110. And we're reading through the whole book. So finally we get to why do herring fart? And she still wasn't happy. She still, we wasn't sure if herring was actually legitimately a fish that we can talk about. But today, since it's, look at this. Look how appropriate this is, hon. For Day of the Dead. Look at Deadly Details. We're going to be paging through that and reading from the Why Fish Fart book by Francesca Gould. Gross, but true things you'll wish you didn't know.
I'm going to put a picture of the fish.
And let's see what else we're going to be doing on Dave's Gone By. Oh, well, we will also have our Inside Broadway segment. We're going to talk about the Broadway theater, give you some theater news and anecdotes, and also going to be reviewing.
I'm putting a picture of a penguin gone fishing.
I went to see just a week ago, the revival of the Tennessee Williams play, The Rose Tattoo, which is not, it's a pretty well-known play of his, although it's not on the level or considered on the level of Glass Menagerie or of Streetcar Named Desire or the quite overrated Cat on a Hot Tin Roof. This is seen as a more minor piece. It's also a surprisingly comic and romantic piece coming out of Tennessee Williams. This is one of those with, I don't want to give it away, but kind of a happy ending. It's The Rose Tattoo. It's on Broadway with Marissa Tomei, and I will let you know what I thought of it later in the show.
Would be Christina Chenoweth.
Well, no, Christine Chenoweth's on Broadway. She's doing a concert in a week or so. So lots of stuff to talk about.
I did a fish, and I did a fish, and I did a penguin ice fishing.
Yay! We, most of all, will be having a special guest in the Daverhood a little later in the show. Not just Rabbi Saul Solomon, the one, the only. No, we're not having. And we will have Rabbi Saul, who is the founder and spiritual leader of Temple Sons of Bitches in Great Neck, New York. And Rabbi Saul has talked to whole bunches of well-known people, celebrities, not such celebrities, but we're very excited to have a very cultural guest in the Daverhood, because Rabbi Saul will be talking to a director named Darren Lee Cole. He's oldish King Cole, who is going to be on the show. Now, Darren Lee Cole, he's going to be directing a show off-Broadway, kind of off-ish, called Games. In fact, it's already playing. It's supposed to be very good. And it's all about, oh boy, the Holocaust years. So who better than Rabbi Saul to be talking to Darren Lee Cole, who also, by the way, is the owner and proprietor of the Soho Playhouse down on Van Dam Street in the Village.
Is it John Van Dam?
It's not Jean-Claude Van Damme. It's Van Damme off, I think, Spring. It's like a block from the Spring Street E-train. So it's a lot easier to get to than you would normally think. Because I don't know, I went to NYU for about 5.5 years. I know the Village. I've seen.
It took you that long to graduate?
Well, it took me that long to figure out the streets of Greenwich Village below West 3rd Street, right? and I still can't. I don't understand why you would design a city where you have West 4th Street, 7th Street, 8th, 9th Street, 10th. That is fantastic, all the way up to the hundreds, right? Up into the 200s when you go into Dykeman and the Bronx.
That's right.
And then the avenues, like 11th Avenue, almost 12th, and then there's Water. And then on the other side of it, you have Zero Avenue, which I guess is other Water. 1st Avenue, 2nd, 3rd. Makes so much sense.
Yeah, York and first.
York and first. Okay, so I don't know why they did the York thing. should have been Avenue like 1/2. Would have made more sense. Or 11.5 or 12.5. But okay, you can figure out where you are from Midtown to Uptown Manhattan with very little difficulties because it's mapped out beautifully, even when they give streets like second names, Golda Meir Way.
Avenue of Americas.
Yeah, Avenue, Mayor Koch Boulevard. What else have they done? Gowanus Place. And, Dolomite Lane, whatever they want to call it. That's they still have the other side. They don't have to. That's the point. It's our own little world. And if you watch the show long enough, then you start getting the in-jokes and you kind of get into the mindset of the Daverhood. But the point of that is somehow when they were devising New York and how to put it on maps and how to create a city, they started, why didn't they start 0 Street or 1 Street near the water or near the Jersey border, and then 1, 2, 3, 4. No, you got West 4th Street, where NYU starts and the basketball courts are and all of that. And you can get down to 3rd, no 2nd, no 1st, and then it's no man's land, Carmine and Chinatown streets and Mulberry, and then going further down towards Canal.
The Pearl is in the river.
When Pearl Street is in the river, what? But I'm just saying, and then there's no canal on Canal Street.
That's a reference from Chinatown.
But it's a good luck
There is when people make urination.
What are you talking about? What do you mean? Oh, there's a canal on Canal Street. If they maybe back in the day, that's where they had their troughs for. But why would they do this? Why is it that when you go down below a certain street, you have no idea where the hell you are? And even the avenues and things get all crossed up.
The looky-boos.
I guess. I'm sure the Chinese people, when they're immigrants, and not all of them, I'm sure, are.
Yeah, but they didn't make the street names.
But they get to be in all these little places and tucked away things.
The settlers.
And the Italians in Little Italy. Where do they have the San Gennaro Festival? What streets are those? That's near Mulberry. It's.
I don't know. Near Ferraro's, the cafe.
Yeah, I don't understand who devises something that starts so sensibly for about 5 square miles and more, 10 square miles, but below it they're like, meh, just name it what you want. Van Dam Street.
That's for John Claude.
Gay Street. Oh, okay, that one I get. Christopher Street, I get those. Makes sense. But why? Why not? This is beyond me. And so, especially like there was a time, as a matter of fact, it was like shortly-ish after 9/11, and they were doing a show about 9/11 called The Guys downtown in a theater when that theater started to get operational again. And I tried to grab a little food before the show, starting at like 7:30 at night. And I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to go about 3 blocks away, grab a quick bite, and come back. And then I was trying to, this is before the day everybody had GPS on their telephone. I think I barely even carried a cell phone at that point. And suddenly I'm walking and I'm looking for, like, please, where the hell am I? I just went to the theater. I walked 3 blocks in like one little direction, made one turn, and I'm gone. I'm lost. And I think I made it all the way back to like 3rd Street. It's like, oh, I know where I am now. I'm just real far away from the show, which I missed the first like 15 minutes of.
Really?
Yeah. Spoiler alert, in The Guys, firemen are dead. Okay, we knew that. But it's just so how did I get on that anyway?
Because the Guys Theater's in the Village.
The Village, right.
You just went from where your guest theater is to like riffing about.
That's it.
Yeah.
Van Dam Street, which seems so ridiculously far. I'm like, where the hell is it? And you realize, oh, you get off the Spring Street subway, the E train, and oh, okay, there it is. But I have no idea where the hell the Flea Theater is now. I couldn't find the Flea Theater when they were up on where the Flea Theater was. And then they moved on. Flea Theater was done by, oh my gosh, I forget his name, but he's married to Sigourney Weaver and all that. And they had a theater and it was a good location. No, it wasn't a great location. Couldn't find the damn thing. And now they've tucked it even further away in downtown New York. And no idea where the hell it is. So. Well, that's my rant on location. I wasn't even going to talk about that. I was going to talk about Darren Lee Cole, because he will be talking to Rabbi Saul Solomon later about directing games, about owning the Soho Playhouse, which is where, among the things that have appeared there, include John Paul George Ringo, a song by our friend, a one-man play by our friend of the Daverhood, Dave J. Plus, I think maybe the Fleabag woman did her show there. She's now super famous. I mean, I think she won an Emmy a couple of weeks ago. I mean, she did it in England first, I'm sure, and then she brought it to Fringes here. But yeah, she did her show there. I mean, I've seen tons of shows at the Soho Playhouse over the years and had some very good experiences there. I think, and this is very exciting for Rabbi Saul Solomon, the show that brought the Soho Playhouse back into being when Darren Lee Cole first took it over was Grandma Sylvia's Funeral.
Oh, whoa.
Which is a very Jewish-y kind of thing. So it all works out. It's all very appropriate for later in the show when Darren Lee Cole visits the Daverhood live with us and with Rabbi Saul.
D-A-R-R-E-N.
Yeah, D-A-R-R-E-N, Lee Cole, as in King Cole and all of that. So let's see. And you know, I also wanted to talk about this. Since I'm talking about getting lost and perambulating, and since Joyce and I are going to be going to Austin, Texas in a couple of weeks, and
is this theater called Teatro Giaco?
That's kind of interesting. Darren Lee Cole not only runs the Soho Playhouse and not only brings Fringe Festival stuff into it, because he goes around the world to different Fringe festivals to bring the best of other fringes to New York. But he has a theater that he founded in Costa Rica called Teatro Giaco. And I knew nothing about that until...
Does he speak Spanish?
I assume he must. Or as he would say, sí.
Claro que sí.
Claro que sí. I think it would be more fun if it was Chato que sí. So he would just shake every time.
His name. He could say Colo.
Why Colo?
From Darren Lee Cole.
Oh. Well, Darren Lee, I don't know where I'm going with this. But anyway... what the hell was I saying? Oh, yeah. About getting lost and Joyce and I will be going to Austin. And I got, let me show you these things. I will be there right there, folks. I'm going to show you this. This is what I do not understand. When we go away, right, to another country, to another state, a place that we don't know where we are, and we're going for more than a day or two. It's not like a business overnight trip, but you're going somewhere. You got to pack underwear because you're in a hotel. You're going to have to do laundry and stuff. So you're going to bring clean clothes, clean shirts. Women, heavier stuff to pack, or if you're going to a colder climate, now you're dealing with sweaters and you're dealing with heavier clothes and pants and stuff. And you got to bring. Actually, back in the old days, you had to bring a camera. Now everybody just brings a phone, but if you're visiting family and stuff, you might have to bring gifts. So if you're like me, you want to be as compact and light and travelable as possible. So can you explain to me why to this day and for years, when companies like Folders and Rick Steves and Rough Guide and all these places, and they put out these marvelous looking, very concise travel guides. There's Frommer's, right? See, Frommer's to Texas. Big book on Texas. Yeah, everything's big in Texas, as the joke goes. The book on Texas is big. And then you've got this one. This one is the Moon Guide. These are more new. I never heard of these years ago. Back then, it was just basically photos. So I got this Moon Guide. And you look at this, and it was so nice and pretty, and it's colored pages, and it seems real fun, and it's great for planning, right? I mean, assuming nobody knows how to use the internet, where you really find the information, but if you just want something, seemingly handy, but look at this thing this feels like it weighs about 2.5 pounds. It may not. I do not want to pack this. I do not want to carry something this size. If I've got something that I'm humping on my back, or worse, people still carry valises and suitcases. What?
I carry a valise.
Joyce carries a valise, or
I love valises.
Schlepping from the airport with a suitcase. And there's the thing is, a tour guide it comes with a map. Most of them do, and little maps inside, but a big old map of the area, right? Texas, T for Texas, T for Tennessee. So it folds out, and you want it handy. You want this to take with you as you're perusing and perambulating the avenues and the streets with different names and not numbers in whatever city that you're going to. And meanwhile, you're weighed down enough. Because also, don't forget, if you're on holiday, and you have kids, you've got relatives, you've got coworkers, and oh God, you spend half your time just looking for souvenirs to bring back. And you gotta get candies or chocolates or little doodads or knickknacks or what my mom calls shakies, the snow globes, the shot glasses. It's like,
David, could we do Greeley Crime sometimes? I gotta go.
all right, let me finish my spiel. But I'm just saying, wouldn't it make sense? Wouldn't it be kind of wise if some genius out there, some publishing genius thought, hey, let's do a tour book, and it doesn't have to be real pretty in color, and it doesn't necessarily have to list all the hotels.
Because that's called the internet.
It is. So why make, this is a 2000 and I'm assuming either 18 or maybe even 19 issue travel guide. This is not from 1987. This is not from 2004. This is a brand new Frommer's travel guide from, let's find out when. It's not even going to tell us. How nice of them.
I'll tell you.
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind. Maybe Moon will be forthcoming. And then I will wax poetic over the moon. Moon guy. But here's the deal. This one is a little bit lighter. Where's the genius? Because if you think about it, you ever pick up a children's book? You ever pick up like a Captain Underpants book or a soft cover of a Harry Potter book? And it's 500 pages long, but it feels lighter than your daily newspaper? Because it's printed on crap paper, and it's why? Where's the genius who will make a tour book, a tour guide, out of that paper? Right? Don't worry about because color adds a lot of weight.
The plasticine is not very good on this one.
Yeah, see? Oh well, that's a real in joke that I'm not going to get into. But where's the person? Because you figure, maybe the book won't last, right? The book, if we make it out of crappy newspaper type newsprint paper,
It doesn't say that.
it won't last. But the point is, how many times do you need that tour book? It's like, we're going to China next month, and you're going to need it for 3 weeks in China. You know, maybe once if you go back for business a couple months later. You're not going to China every 4 weeks where it's going to be a sturdy book, well made with good binding and good pay. No.
2017.
17. Oh, so this one's 2 years old. How old is the Moon book?
17.
So
the library received at 17.
At the very end of 17. So these were printed in 2017. These books that are like, you're carrying not
I hope we can
hubcaps.
get to Texas if they build a wall in Colorado.
That's right. But I just, someone can answer that for me. Like light, really portable books, no frills, but all the information that you need so that you can carry it in your bag, or even maybe if you have big pockets, whip it out when you're on the street.
It's called your cell phone, honey.
I know. Then why bother printing tour guides at all? They still do.
I don't know. 2 years ago we did.
Wait, are you giving me the thumbs up here?
No.
Oh, well, thank you for the thumbs up. See, I always do this. I give other people $1 million ideas.
Crying.
Oh, hey, welcome to Al and John and Arlene and Chris and Lara. Oh, Lara from my old writers group, and Eileen and Tim and Raymond and all the folks who are tuning in. So anyway, wow, it's already like 9:30 in the morning Eastern time here in the Daverhood. We're doing the 719th edition of Dave's Gone By that we're calling King Cole in honor of our upcoming guest, Darren Lee Cole of the Soho Playhouse, who will be talking to Rabbi Sol Solomon. In a while, we'll have our Inside Broadway segment. We'll have more story time. We have our Colorado Limerick of the Damned, where we go to Ouray, Colorado. Yeah? The speakers are right here. Let's see. And our Today, Yesterday quiz. All of that ahead. But before we get to any of that, as I mentioned, very excited that we have a cornucopia, and it's cornier than you think, of items for our segment, Greeley Crimes and Old Times. So, what is Greeley Crimes at Old Times? I mentioned that one of the nice things about this segment is that I don't have to really do anything because the folks of the Greeley Tribune, specifically a guy named Joe Moylan, he writes a weekly column called Cop Log. And there he's using his public domain information. It's actually public information of people who call in to the Greeley and Weld County and Northern Colorado Police Dispatch with terrible complaints or problems or things they're scared of.
These are props you can use.
Oh God! Let's save them. I'll see if they come in handy
And this one.
during Greeley Crimes at All Times. I think this actually will. This is so great. Okay, remind me that I've got these here. Hold on. Okay, so the phone calls come in. These are people who who think that they need help from the police, and Joe Moylan.
They need divine intervention.
And Joe Moylan puts it all together in a column called Cop Log in this newspaper, the Greeley Tribune. But also the Greeley Tribune and our friend of the Daverhood there. I don't know what that was. No, I don't have the noisemakers. Oh no, that's what I forgot to get. I forgot my xylophone and my bell and the special noisemaker. They're all in the top drawer, please. And these are top drawer jokes we're doing, ladies and gentlemen. From also in the Greeley Tribune, it's Greeley 100 years ago. So our friend Mike Peters will go through the newspapers from 1919 and pull out the most strange.
When you're doing 1919, play the appropriate music.
Oh, this will be great. So when we get to Greeley Old Times, Joyce actually got me this little.
That's beautiful.
Isn't it lovely? So yeah, so we have all sorts of noises ready and available for Greeley Crimes and Old Times because we lump the two things together to do this segment.
Calls in.
I have nowhere to put that. Just
You can just have it.
I can have it local on the floor.
Here's your xylophone.
Oh, thank you, my xylophone. This is exciting. All right. Are you ready? Are you ready for Greeley Crimes and Old Times?
I'm born ready.
Okay, here we go. For example, police responded. Oh, here's the police responding.
Wait. No, you gotta hold it.
Hello?
Okay.
Get on camera, they can't see. Yeah. Nothing like prop humor. Oh, thanks. Okay. Has a nice ring to it. So, police responded to Wedgwood Drive
Oh, nice.
for a woman.
Oh, hold on. Where's the music?
Oh, yeah, this is important.
Hold on, wait.
So, this is police responding for a woman
Yeah.
who changes her wigs to avoid being spotted.
I like that.
You think?
You know, that's the Moira on Schitt's Creek.
Oh, that's right. When she doesn't want to be noticed by her adoring public.
Why don't we change our wig?
Why not get a wig? It wouldn't hurt, I'll tell you. But yeah, she.
I have so many friends. I'm still inviting people.
Oh, excellent! Please, yeah. But she does this to avoid being spotted.
By who?
Well, by the way, and I hear endangered owls do that too. What are you? What? It's like a mouse farting. What's that noise?
It's the bed.
Oh, and by the way, I couldn't think of any Wedgwood puns. What would those be?
Dishes? Glass?
Yeah, right.
China.
Have to dish on this woman. I don't know.
Oh,
thank you.
You don't get
I have too much on my plate already.
You're too cracked.
Hey, oh, when you finish inviting, don't forget your noise-making
Oh, I'm sorry.
importance things. Or do you want me to do that?
Where is it? I can't feel it.
Where is it? Oh, it's right by your
Oh,
cup.
okay.
All right. Thank you. All right, here we go. Police responded.
Hold this.
No, this is almost like 8th and 8th. Here's the police responding
Wait,
again.
hold on.
Police. Man, phones used to be noisy back then. To not 8th and 8th, but 8th and 9th Street.
Uh-oh.
Ooh, for a report of a man in a parking lot. Actually, no. He was screaming about dead bodies.
Wait, hold on. Oh, not that one. Wait.
Maybe it was me talking about burials. Yeah.
That's a loud burp, eh?
Yeah. But this was before Halloween. It was like a week and a half before Halloween.
He probably took the oxycodone. That makes you lose
Yeah.
weight.
You know where the bodies are buried, by the way?
Where?
8th and 8th. So there. Let's do I'm going to do some old times now from 1919 in the newspapers. Yeah, okay, there we go. So,
That was refreshing.
you have, this is a quote, you have the prettiest town in the United States, says Captain C.D. Neff. He lives in Fort Collins.
Captain CD?
Well, he's a C.D. captain indeed. And I can't get a Neff of him. C.D. Neff. He lives in Fort Collins, but he grew up in Greeley. So why the hell did he move? Neff's Lake, northwest of Greeley, was named after this guy's family. And although he will continue to live in Fort Collins, he said Greeley's a much prettier city.
You know why he said that?
Why?
Because he was a hobo. He was forced out.
Oh, that could be. I found a new box to live in.
Right.
By the way, just so you know, and I know you were worried about this, Captain Neff looks hale and hearty in spite of his years.
Oh, good.
I mean, his ears and his nose. I need my noise. Thank you so much.
It's hard because I'm inviting the billions of people.
I know.
I can't do, but I'm like tapping the thing. Okay.
We need. Oh, that's perfect. A German applying for American citizenship in Greeley courts this week. How's that German? Yeah. So this German told the judge it was lawful to beat your wife.
Yeah. Wait, hold on a minute.
No, where's the screaming woman? Oh, yeah.
Oh.
So he said the German guy said it's lawful to beat your wife. The judge said, well, it may be in Germany, but not here. He told the German to go back to citizenship school.
Whoa, that's like your mama.
Yeah. Although instead, what happened was the German went back to Munich, became an amateur painter, and got into politics. So
Nice.
yeah, kind of wonder what happened to him. Anywho,
Don't be Austrian, hun.
oh, you know that's true.
Mm-hmm.
That just
Get your racist jokes right.
Can an anti-German joke really be racist?
Yeah. I'm German. I find it racist.
Oh, okay, cool. Police responded to 18th Street
Okay.
for a landlord who was sending rude text messages to a tenant. The caller told police his landlord is his aunt.
Oh, God.
He also said his aunt was sending mean texts to his mother.
Oh, my God.
What a family. These guys are great. This is a sitcom right here on Netflix. Anyway, police also responded to 23rd Avenue Court. Here come the police. I love this. This is wonderful. Here we go. Police arrived for a child who was struck in the head with a toy house bowl. I don't know what a toy house bowl is, but the caller told police she was having an argument with her husband about the backsplash they just purchased when he grabbed a small bowl and threw it on the floor.
Yeah.
One of their children was on the couch watching TV in another room.
Yeah.
The bowl bounced off the floor and struck one of the children in the head. That's what I call a bowl movement. I gotta tell you. The child did not need medical attention, but
we don't have a kid crying.
no. Oh.
Remember, we used to have the one that
Well,
had the baby.
Yeah, we had a whole bunch of those noise machines, but this one was doing its job. The child was okay, but the caller wanted police to talk to her husband about his temper. Well, yeah. Let's see.
I think he was a descendant of the German who beats his.
That could be. He beats his wife with a bouncing bowl.
Yeah, but who called, the kid?
No, I assume the wife did because they were worried the child needed medical attention. Maybe they both did. Greeley police responded to 10th Street and 18th Avenue for a man who had questions about the ticket he recently received
Okay.
for jaywalking.
Oh, come on. Who gets a jaywalking ticket? Even in Greeley.
And trust me, this was not 1919. This was 2019. Someone got a jaywalking ticket
Hey.
like 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Okay.
So I guess the Greeley crime has slowed down a little bit in Greeley, I would imagine.
Wow, I hit the end of the list. Look, David. This was like hundreds of people. Probably thousands.
But Jay Leno was released from prison after the incident, and he's not doing that segment again.
Thank God.
Yeah, there you go.
That man's a freak. He's a freak in the sheets.
We're going with
I
that.
don't even know what I'm saying.
Here we go. Honey, we need. Oh my God, this is very important now.
What?
We have a hobo alert.
Uh-oh, wait.
Hobo alert! Hobo alert! Hobo alert! See, do you want to explain the importance of hobo alerts to our listeners and viewers at home?
I can't. I'm doing this.
You're just making too many noises there. Why are hobo alerts so?
Because it really had two things that three things. First, it was hobos and chickens. There was plagues of chickens, hobos. Right. They would institutionalize them. They would force them to work. They put them in prison. And then during the war, it was the Germans. So those were the three main staples of
the newspapers back then. Roaming chickens. So we have chicken alerts and hobo alerts.
Roaming hobo.
And then Germans, since it was right after World War I, Germans were always the enemy and verboten essentially. So, hobo alert.
Woo!
2 Greeley police officers.
Oh wait, hold on.
Found 2 hobos hiding inside the closed train depot at about midnight last night. As the officers tried to arrest them, one hobo drew a gun.
Oh, wow. Oh my God!
And fired 2 shots, missing both officers. The officers chased them in. They fired shots. Both hobos were able to escape, but the search is ongoing. No one was injured by the gunfire.
You know, those hobos that's a problem.
Yeah, well, also police, nobody knows how to fire guns back then. I guess they were like Gatling shotguns or something where the bullets just went everywhere. You know, if you're firing at homeless people, if you're a cop, you know where you aim?
Where?
For the bum.
Oh, I don't like that.
Noise!
I don't like that.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. Time for an advertisement, folks. Circa 1919. Wrigley's Gum. 5 cents a package before the war. 5 cents a package during the war.
Wait, hold on.
5 cents a package now. The flavor lasts, and so does the price.
Yeah, but guess what? It's made out of tar.
Yeah, well, yeah.
It's gum tar.
But it's nice that Wrigley didn't well, no, that's interesting, because you figure they needed every bit of rubbery substance during the war.
Rubber?
Isn't gum made from like a rubber tree
gum
thing?
Is made of sugar tree.
Oh, maybe.
How much does that little ant?
Anyone knows that Greeley police responded. Where are we? Yes, to a store on 10th Street.
Oh, hold on.
This is big criminal news here. Police responded to a store on 10th Street for a bird trapped inside.
Oh, wait.
The caller dialed Weld County Dispatch asking for police to come and help get the bird back outside. Officers, what did they do? No, what do you think the officers did?
Was it a crow? If
Oh,
it's a crow, they did it.
How do you think the police responded to this request to get a bird out of this guy's store?
Uh-oh. They called wildlife experts. Did they call a vet who sedated it?
No. Officers recommended that the owner open the front door and wait for the bird to fly out on its own.
Hold on.
And you know what's a great idea, but you know what people don't think of? If you're opening the door to get a bird out, what's keeping more birds from flying in?
You know what you're supposed to do?
What?
You're supposed to get So when I was a babysitter in
Tell the story,
in grammar school, I used to babysit a girl who had a parrot, and she wasn't supposed to let out parakeet. And of course she did because she's a child. And the bird would fly into the window, and I was afraid he was going to break his bird net because that was my my worst case scenario. So all you do when you have a bird, and I called the mother, she said, get a towel, get a bath towel, and corral the bird, and then just move the bird in the towel and let the bird in the cage. Get a bird in the towel and shake the towel out the window. How hard is that?
I don't.
Why are they calling police for that?
Well, actually, though, how do you make sure that the bird flies low enough? I mean, yours was like a parrot thing.
Yeah, but it was on the ceiling, and I was a teenager. No,
so,
I was probably not even a teenager.
So you knock it down with a towel, and
you
then
go like this, swoop on the towel. You kind of get it in the towel. It goes to fly, and then you catch it.
Cool.
Yeah, that's all.
Cool. I don't know. See, if I were trying to catch birds, I guess I'd have to wing it. I know that joke was foul.
That joke is very sad.
Hon?
Yes. Hello, when I need it. Calling.
This is not just a hobo alert, ladies and gentlemen. This is actually a hobo racial alert.
What?
Yes, this is a brand new alert here.
I don't have anywhere thousands of people to invite. I can't believe I did it all.
Yeah. Are you ready for a hobo racial alert?
Hold on, let me call. Wait, let me call. If it's racial?
You should use the white phone. Here we go. Police responded to a fast food restaurant on Center Place Drive.
Oh, wait. Oh, we know what that is.
Yeah. Well, we know where. I'm not sure which fast food place.
There's a couple up there.
But for, quote,
my phone's off the hook. Hold on.
This is what they were responding to.
Yeah.
For, quote, a not white woman panhandling with her children. So this is both a hobo alert and a racially tinged.
Yes, non-German racist.
Yeah, racially tinged alert here in Greeley. And this is a New Times, by the way. So we're doing Greeley crimes and old times here on Dave's Call By.
The police addressed it.
Now, one of the things that we like to do on Greeley crimes and old times is sometimes we'll go elsewhere. We will look to other places for news of the odd and weird and funny, because. So we've got we've got a bunch of elsewheres. We're backed up on those too.
The watch party's full of people.
Excellent. I'm thrilled. By the way, so put your eyeballs near the computer for this, folks, because first of all, the first place that we're going.
The watch party's a little delayed.
Is local, right here in Nassau County on Long Island. There's a newspaper that we get called the Jewish Star. Great pun, right? The Jewish Star.
Wait, hold on.
It's a newspaper for our burgeoning. It's always been a pretty Jewish community, but we've gotten tons of Orthodox and modern Orthodox coming in from Cedarhurst and environs, and that's perfectly fine. And there's a newspaper. Every newspaper in the world is dying, closing up, going web only, firing everybody. The two Jewish newspapers in town, they can't fit enough pages for all the advertising that they get. So, and I think that's actually kind of neat. But so there's this one of the newspapers. this is Rabbi Oscar here.
That's his yarmulke eye.
This is a yarmulke eye.
Yeah.
But here's the deal. So we've got this newspaper. It's all about the local Jewish community, local Jewish news. But one of the greatest headlines ever, probably accidental, saying what they meant to say. But I think somebody knew what they wanted. So this is for the anti-vaxxers out there in the Jewish Star newspaper of just this week. This is still on the stand.
Look at this.
Here we go.
He's trying to read it.
Rabbi Glott promotes vaccination, gets shot at the Jewish Star. I mean, I know it can be dangerous to get a vaccine, but it shouldn't really be that bad that you go to a newspaper and you get shot while you're there. I just think that's terrible. Anywho, is that Oscar questioning his sexuality?
No, Oscar's questioning reality.
I was wondering about Grouchetta, anywho. Oh, thank you, Oscar. Oh, this was my hand puppet when I was, God, how old was Stop that now. When I was, I guess 35, 36 years old. No. My parents I was a huge Sesame Street fan. Oh, it feels so nice. And they knew that I loved Oscar because Oscar was the not out. He was the outrageous one. Oh, I'll never hear the end of that, folks. The wife of my heterosexual marriage laughs at me here. No, but he was out there. He was the one. He wasn't nice. He wasn't sweet and stupid like Big Bird.
You're grumpy. He's grumpy.
Yeah. I mean, he was the one who really said what was on his mind. He didn't like people, didn't want to deal with people, just wanted to be left alone with his trash, with his stuff. That was me.
It is still you.
Yeah, and he got to be mean and grumpy and nasty, and everybody tolerated it. What better way to live can there be? When you get to be you, and you get to say what you really feel, and blurt out, "Go away, I'm bored." You know, people, we can't say that to people. Oscar could.
Do you want your to fill in?
I think that's, I brought it over here. Oh, it's right there. So, but check this out. Check this. This is very exciting for people who've been watching the show for a very long time.
Wait, hold on.
I'll also let you know here.
Hold on, David. Hold
And
on.
we have a very special thing because I got a package from beloved eBay. Don't show our address there, but from
Please don't show your address.
eBay. Our potatoes are very expectant and excited. Ladies and gentlemen, a brand new potato.
No hat!
He's a hatless one. Look at him. Look at him. Ow.
Watch your head.
He just puts that right into my canker store. Ow.
Sorry. Look,
What are they doing to him?
they're attacking him because he has no hat.
What, maybe they could find a hat for him instead and be nice to him, because look how round he is. Look how absolutely adorable this new potato is. This is, you know, when you're married a long time, you want respect from your. Oh no!
Effective.
Yeah. Oh, well, that's the older
Yeah.
one. Oh,
You need the
isn't he
hat.
beautiful, folks? Our brand new potato. We're going to call him Potato.
Yeah, but he's defective. Hold
He's
on,
not
wait.
defective. He's just missing his beautiful little
Okay,
hat.
another potato gave him this here. Is
Oh.
there something we can attach?
Yeah, attach it here.
It to his
There
head.
we go. We're gonna give him a little bow so he doesn't feel.
Get him from his head. Okay.
Oh, come on! Oh, look at that! Isn't that the most beautiful thing you've ever seen?
The
Oh,
bow. Hold on.
all right, hold on.
You gotta get it on his head.
And by the way, welcome to all these people. I got Diane and Jim and Reggie and Yvette and Frank and Deborah and Tara and David. Everything old is new again. So here, look at that. There we go. Brand new potato joining the Daverhood.
These are
Very
your
exciting.
watch party people, David. I just want you to see this. Look at this.
Yeah, we've got
Look
so
at
many
that,
tons of
look.
people. I can
Look
read
at all
some
that,
of them.
look at all that.
Michael and Lara mentioned
That's
Rick
all.
and William and Alan and Earl, Christopher, Lenny, Angela, Dan, Barbara, Robert, Bobby, my cousin Bobby, Maria and Ira and Ted, Jeff, John, Matthew, Nicole,
Ira, Max.
James, yeah, Joel, Richard. I'm so sorry if I can't mention all your names because I don't get to see all the people who are watching the watch parties, and sometimes I don't even get to see all the people who are watching here.
So David,
But yeah. Yeah, well, once the show's over, I'll close it. Yeah, I did that last week. We're good. Okay, let me go do what you got to do. We'll come back. We'll finish Greeley Crimes and Old Times. Meanwhile, I can first of all thank our sponsors very, very much. The kind and wonderful people at Hewlett Minuteman Press, the copy kings of Broadway in Hewlett, Long Island. Now, Minuteman has sponsored this show from the very beginning. And I've known them even before the show. I mean, the Torong family has owned and operated the Minuteman franchise in Hewlett, Long Island, right in the heart, right in that strip mall in the middle of Hewlett, Long Island on Broadway. They've been there since 1974, I believe, or the mid-1970s is when they took it on. Miles and Carlene Torong. Miles passed away a couple of years ago. The boys, they're older than I am, I think. They've taken the place over and they run it very, very well. The point is, if you need copying, printing, binding done, if you need your logo on some kind of uniform or some sports garment or item you're going to wear, or pens and pencil sets, golf balls, calendars, Mylar balloons, big banners and flyers, anything essentially. If you want to brand some item with your name or the name of your business, Hewlett Minuteman Press is the place to go. And they're also known for their holiday cards. My gosh, it's November 2nd, ladies and gentlemen. So if you're going to be sending Christmas cards, Kwanzaa cards, Festivus cards, Hanukkah cards, Hewlett Minuteman Press is the place to go. If you need business cards for yourself, they're also the place to go. Give them a call. They're open actually until noon today. 516-569-5577. Area code 516-569-5577. And if you tell them Dave sent you from Dave's Gone By, you get 10% off any job, big or small. So if you walk in with like one black and white copy, it's like 10 cents. You pay only 9 cents. If you walk in with a giant job, you're doing some kind of big festival or a big corporate presentation, and you need big spiral-bound 300-page copies of this and that with color and brochures, it's going to be a big bill. You can take 10% off by telling them Dave sent you from Dave's Gone By. 516-569-5577, Hewlett Minuteman Press. They are the copy kings. And I feel like king of the world when I do this program, which we are calling today King Cole. That is the episode of Dave's Gone By that you are watching live because, well, I mean, unless you're watching this later in the archives and you're not watching it live, but you're live, even on this Dia de los Muertos. So it's our 719th episode, and we're looking forward to Darren Lee Cole, who's going to be with us. He is a director. He's also the owner of the Soho Playhouse on Van Dam Street in Greenwich Village, and there have been tons of shows there over the years, beginning essentially with Grandma Sylvia's funeral, John Paul George Ringo. I should have gotten a whole other list, a big collection of the plays and musicals that have played in the Soho Playhouse, because they have two different spaces. They've got the main stage upstairs, which I guess has about 90 or 100 seats, and then they have a downstairs bar area that also functions as a small clubby place to do a show. And it's funky, it's very villagey. It's really great that that's still around and doing what it does. Owned and operated by Darren Lee Cole, who is directing a play called Games. Also, that's what he's doing. I believe Games is there. I may want to check that. I don't want to give the wrong information about that. But let's see, hold on. Where can you see this drama about the 1936 Olympics in Munich? So, of course, Rabbi Saul wants to talk about that. It is directed by Darren Lee Cole. Well, I'll have to find his. Yes, it's at the Soho Playhouse on Van Dam Street. And it's going to be running now through November 24th. By the way, welcome to Will. Oh, my gosh, the comedian Will, who was on our show about a year or two ago. Welcome to all of you. We're here every Saturday from 9 until noon Eastern Time in the Daverhood. To find out more about the show, go to davesgoneby.com, DAVESGONEBY.com. That is the place to watch and listen to our archives going all the way back to 2002. Plus, there's photos of the show, tons of information there, davesgoneby.com. davesgoneby@AOL.com is the way to write to me or just post to me here on our Facebook page. So, hon, are you ready to finish up with a little bit more of Greeley crimes and old times? Because we want to do some elsewhere stuff. We want to let people know what is happening elsewhere in the world. Speaking, hey, this works out perfectly. Day after Halloween. Yeah, day after Halloween. Ooh, remind me. And I'm sure Rabbi Saul will remind me because he's Jewish, but this is the day to save money on candy. When you go to the supermarket and, go to the convenience stores and things. Day after Halloween.
Convenience store? I don't think they have.
Well, this is the time to buy, like, the big bags of candy because they'll be
Really?
25% off
Why
at
don't you
least.
just go find a kid and ask them for something?
Well, I could do that. Yeah, we should just mug a child because they'll still be carrying the bag from yesterday.
Yesterday?
But since this is Dia de Muertos, right? Day of the
And
Dead.
then some people say De los Muertos too. I've seen that.
Oh, well, that's what I used to call it. But here we go. He got the last laugh. Loved ones. This is, by the way, this is coming to us from Dublin, Ireland. Loved ones at an Irish funeral for Defense Forces veteran Shay Bradley were shocked and then delighted when they heard Shay's voice calling out from his coffin.
Oh my God.
They heard, and this is, I guess, a quote, "Hello, hello, let me out." They heard as the casket was being lowered into the ground. What do you think happened?
I think someone put a voice recorder in there.
Yeah, exactly. The pre-recorded message, thank God, continued, and pardon my French, but this is a quote, Where the fuck am I? Let me out. Let me out. It's fucking dark in here. I don't know why I'm doing a Liverpool accent, but
Why are you not the Beatles?
I can only do Irish when I'm singing like the Clancy Brothers. I
So
can't.
sing it.
Oh, let me out. It's fucking dark in here. Is that the priest? This is Shay. I'm in the box. No, in fucking front of you, I'm dead. A video of the posthumous prank posted to Twitter shows mourners laughing and crying as Bradley's voice begins to sing, hello again, hello, I just called to say goodbye. Still English. The footage has gone viral with more than 500,000 views, over 16,000 likes. Friends and family said that Bradley, who died after a long illness, quote, wanted to make his family laugh rather than cry at his funeral. Bradley's fellow veterans said...
It probably gave the Undertaker a heart attack.
I'm sure they had me in.
I hope so.
Bradley's fellow veterans said on Facebook the video was all about military humor. It's the difference between military and civilian humor. Military is black. The video says it all. What do I do for my funeral? I gotta do something that's like makes people laugh or is, oh, that's so Dave. I don't want to be buried in a potato costume. It'll be too warm. What would be really
You'll be
mean?
dead. You won't feel anything.
I don't know. Do you know what the dead feel?
I don't know what the dead feel.
Especially if I'm buried like a little too soon.
I've been with a lot of people who are dying and they don't say anything about feeling, that kind of stuff.
Oh, well, I guess they're at that moment losing feeling, but maybe they wake up in the coffin in that altered state and they're in limbo.
So why?
And they're like, oh, goddamn, I got a shawl around me. I don't need this.
What do you want to wear? Why don't you wear like why don't you just have the Shalom Dammit playing over and over again on your tombstone, like in the cemetery?
Oh, I would love that.
You'll
That'd
have
be
to get a
excellent.
special like soundproof booth so you don't disturb the other mourning family.
Maybe I should be buried naked. That's people should. I mean, Jews, they put a shawl and stuff for funerals or open caskets, but I'm naked except for like a button over my genitals. And the button reads something amazing like shalom or,
That's
I
right.
told you I was sick. That's the old one.
No.
What would it be?
I don't know. I'll be gone first.
Oh, you know what would be genius?
What?
I'm stark naked, except for a button covering my genitals, but the button has a picture of my penis.
Yeah, there you go.
Like totally mega.
Yeah.
I like it. I'm gonna work on that. You're
That's-
gonna have to work on that because
I won't
that'll be
here.
your
No,
responsibility.
I'm going first.
Oh, you're not
I'm
going first. You're not going anywhere.
Look, I'm sending.
I won't
You're
let you.
laughing and I'm sending crying.
Dateline, England. This is another. We're still going elsewhere for Greeley Crimes at All Times. New British reality show asks families.
Oh no.
No, check this out. To adopt a pet lamb or piglet.
No. Oh no.
And
Wait, hold on. Here, do this.
This is true. This is a brand new show in England. And then they adopt it, but then they have to make the decision if they're gonna cook it and eat it.
Oh God, that's horrific.
It's called, the name of the show, this is real.
That's horrific.
Absolutely real and brand new. It's called Meet the Family. Okay, M-E-A-T,
that's
Meet the Family.
That's disgusting.
Carnivore families have to raise an animal for 3 weeks before they decide whether to slaughter it or go vegetarian. These, quote, warm, opinionated families will share their homes with an animal they would normally eat: lamb, chicken, pig, or calf. Presumably, producers don't follow the family members for years after the taping
That's disgusting.
to verify whether they stayed vegetarian, but it's still a pretty dramatic moral decision.
Like
You don't like the idea? Do you think any families would actually, after living with an animal for 3
I
weeks?
think people are sick. I think people would do it. People, yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Farmers do it all the time. They feed, the kid cares for an animal, and then one day, it's like, into the barn.
Give me a kiss, sexy monkey.
okay, let me kiss my wife because she's gonna get ready to head to New York City and see her family and stuff. So,
Don't give too much info.
well, I'm not telling you where you're going. East 8th Street. No, thanks, sweetie. Love you. Thank you for your help. That's my darling and adorable wife, Joyce, on the show. Do you want to look at you? She's really pretty. You want to just put your face on the camera for a
It's your
moment?
show. It's not my show. If it
Oh.
was my show, I'd be there. I gotta get ready. I'll be gone in a second.
All right. Anyway,
What did you say?
I said all right. Anyway, that's what
Do some.
that's my transitional thing.
Do some dapping. Dap, 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 dap,
This
dap.
This is dapping is just like voguing sideways, isn't it? It's sort of like.
Do it again. Dap, 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 dap.
Wait, I have it.
Dap, dubstep, 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 dubstep.
Do your legs do this, or what? How is this dapping? Oh, well, your legs do that.
No, your hands do that.
Okay, I can't. I
Now
can't dap to
direct
say.
traffic.
I can't dap. Don't ask me. I can't dap. Don't ask me. Yeah. I'm not a dap king. Not even a dap
which
prince.
jacket I should wear, David.
It'll be chilly out, but sunny. So how late are you going to be? Don't tell everybody how late.
Not that late.
Think how late you're going to be, and then dress appropriately or dress inappropriately. My wife has some nice cans, by the way. I'm just staring at them at the moment. Anywho, I'll see you later. But anyway, you're watching Dave's Gone By. I've given you already way too much information about my life and family. Welcome to Tara and David and Will and Jeffrey and Trevor from my old radio station where I used to work and do this show, and Claudia from my high school, and Frank, and so many people tune in week after week, occasionally skipping a week, and shame on you, but generally you're here and I'm here doing Dave's Gone By. I want to let you know or remind you that upcoming in this episode, we still have the Colorado Limerick of the Damned, which is where I do a short, hilarious poem about some place in Colorado, and today we're going to go to Ouray, Colorado, O-U-R-A-Y, Ouray, Colorado. We will also have more of Storytime on Joyce. Oh, poor thing, she's going to miss the finale of Why Fish Fart. Yeah, we're going to finish this book today. It's like our 16th or 17th time we've been doing this, and we'll have our yesterday quiz as well. As a matter of fact, why don't we go right into that? Because our main thing is that Darren Lee Cole, the director and the artistic director of Soho Playhouse, is going to be with us in just a little while. But then before then, we do have more stuff to do on Dave's Gone By, including this very, very fun segment. Let me make sure that Cynthia and Jeff, who tuned in already like an hour ago, Cynthia and Jeff, you still there? Because we want people to be able to play against you. This is a quiz that we do where I ask questions, and in typical trivia quiz fashion, you gotta answer them. Come up with the answer. So the quiz will be about, it's about 20 minutes long or so, but it's about November 2nd, since that's what today is. It'll be about November 2nd in history. Oh, Cynthia's there. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's get our quiz music playing. Let me get to my iTunes, please. Still want to figure out a better theme for this, but I'm going to try it. Anywho, we call it our yesterday quiz, and it plays a little something like this. Yes, you have to find the answer by yourself. That's kind of the idea. It's no fair cheating, no fair Googling, Wikiing, or Binging. So, that's kind of the point of it. So some of the questions are easy. Some of them seem easy. Some of them are quite difficult. Well, I like it. Joyce is showing me her get up for her getting up and going. So, love you, sweetie. Thank you for your help. I'll see you, God willing, this evening after I get back from Tina. So, yeah. Okay. We are on to our, picked up the wrong page. Yesterday, ladies and gentlemen. Yesterday, our first question, 1889. Okay, we are going back that far. 1889. 2 states simultaneously became the 39th and 40th states of the Union. Both are known for soil, oil, coal, and farmland. Both also have Native Americans living there, including the Mandan and Sioux tribes, a tribe named Sioux. In fact, the Wounded Knee conflict that ended U.S. Native wars happened in one of these states. Can you name them? That's our first question on yesterday. Let me get my important xylophone that I will need for our countdown. And of course, our quiz graphic. I don't need those. There we go. So, There's a question. I'm going to read it again. Today, yesterday, 1889, 2 states became the 39th and 40th states of the Union. They're known for soil and coal and oil and farmland. Both had Native Americans living there, including Sioux and Mandan tribes, and Wounded Knee, which essentially ended hostility. Well, certainly not hostilities, but the physical hostilities between the American military and the Native Americans ended there. Ended in one of these states. What states are we talking about? I'm going to give a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Because here's the deal. Cynthia and Jeff, they work as a team. They're really great. And they answer the questions live on here. So your job is to see if you can beat them. And you're welcome to type first and try and beat them to the punch. And be the first ones to answer and answer correctly. They have given an answer. Their answer is North and South Dakota. And that is the correct answer. They both became the 39th and 40th states of the Union. And kind of interesting, I actually, Joyce and I came fairly close to moving, of all places, to Fargo, North Dakota several years ago when Joyce was looking for where she wanted to teach what she teaches. And that's a place that we looked at. And we went there, I've told this story before, but we went there in early January or mid-January even, and it was about 32 degrees. It was drizzling, snaining. There were piles of snow everywhere. And the guy who was taking us around to show us the town said, "Oh, wow, spring's coming early this year." And Joyce and I just looked at each other and said, "Please, God, let's find another university. Please, let's find another place to live." And we did. But anyway, yes, ladies and gentlemen, Cynthia and Jeff, they're already 1-0. How are you doing in our Today, Yesterday quiz? Yesterday, 1898, Johnny Campbell, a student at the University of Minnesota, perfects this particular sports-related activity. 5 other boys join him, making this the first official date for this activity. What activity is it? This is 1898, University of Minnesota, a guy named Johnny Campbell. He came up with this sports-related activity, codified it as it will. I'll make this a multiple choice. Was it field hockey, ice fishing, ice skating, cheerleading? What is the answer to this question? Think about it while I change the diaper on our dog. Was it field hockey, ice fishing, ice skating, or cheerleading? I'll be right here. I'm right here. I'm just moving along. I got my dog diaper handy. Okay. I see an answer popping up already. So you know what? I'll get this ready, and then I'm going to, hold on. Do we have the correct answer? Because Cynthia and Jeff, they've come up with, they're saying that the answer to the second question, no, it was not field hockey, was not ice fishing, was not even ice skating. No, it was a men's boys activity, cheerleading. And women didn't really officially start doing that in college until 1903. And then, of course, we now think of cheerleading as a women's sport, even in this day and age. So there you go. Well done, Cynthia and Jeff. You're 2-0 in our Today, Yesterday quiz. Let's try another one. 1947, November 2nd. Eccentric millionaire Howard Hughes decided to take a spin in his own personal airplane. It was his first and only flight. Now, he called the plane the H-4 Hercules, but what did journalists call it? Okay, 1947, the first and only flight of Howard Hughes's plane, the H-4 Hercules, but it got a different nickname, another name from journalists, and is much better known under that name since then. You go think, I will diaper dog. Come, dog. Dog, time to get the diaper off you. La 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 la. Da, da, da. Just stand still. Stand still. Oh, who's a good boy? Who's a good boy? And we're good. Okay. So do we have an answer from Cynthia and Jeff, whoa, we have an answer, but is it the correct one? And the answer is correct, Cynthia and Jeff. It was dubbed by journalists the spruce goose. Why do they call it that? Well, it was made mostly of wood to keep it light and airy, although it was not made of spruce, really. It was mostly made of birch. And what happened was Hughes was designing it as early as 1942. It was going to be a warplane. It was going to be cheap to build once they got the prototype right. Made out of wood, nice and light, could fly a far distance. Problem was it was so expensive in the design phase that they basically had to give up on it. And then the point was, because it was light, it could fit more soldiers in it. It was going to be the biggest warplane, so that you could bring X amount of soldiers, land the plane, and have many more, deplane and get off and get shot and killed. But anyway, yes, it was the spruce goose yesterday in 1947. By the way, Warhol's here. Welcome to Warhol and Claudia and all the folks, and Al and Tony and all the people who join us every week in the Daverhood. We are going through, and Melissa, welcome. We are going through our yesterday quiz, November 2nd, 1948. On this date in 1948, a happy and surprising day for Harry Truman. He was reelected, even though headlines of the early papers said that he had lost. To whom? Everybody of a certain generation will know this top of their heads. I love to know if people in their teens and 20s and 30s will know this one. But yes, it was today. How the hell were they holding elections this early? Well, I guess, yeah, it would have been November 2nd, 1948. Harry Truman was reelected, even though he had gone to bed the night before. And the newspapers had gone to bed the night before. One of the most famous headlines of all time. What happened? Whom did Harry Truman defeat? And the answer is, they got it again, Cynthia and Jeff. Fellow's name was former New York Republican Thomas E. Dewey. He was a moderate Republican known for going after organized crime, including he prosecuted Lucky Luciano. But yeah, I think Cynthia and Jeff are 4-0 so far in our yesterday's quiz. So congratulations, guys. Well done. How are the rest of you doing playing against the mighty, mighty Cynthia and Jeff? Yesterday, 1959, writer and professor Charles Van Doren made a very embarrassing public confession of wrongdoing. What was it? Rum tum 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 rum tum tum rum tum 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 rum tum 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 rum tum rum tum tum. So again, I will repeat that question. It was November 2nd, 1959. Writer and professor Charles Van Doren made an embarrassing public confession of what? What was he confessing to? Okay. By the way, you're watching the Dave's Gone By Facebookio Podcastio Programmio on the stream. We've got coming up our interview with Darren Lee Cole and Rabbi Saul Solomon. We've got our Colorado Limerick of the Damned. We're going to go inside Broadway, and we will have more of Storytime. We have an answer from Cynthia and Jeff. Is it the correct answer? Charles Van Doren. He was a very presentable-looking fella, intelligent-looking fella, so intelligent that he got on a game show back in the day called 21. And he got a lot of answers right. Well, he got a lot of answers right anyway. But they found him so telegenic and good for the show that they started feeding him the questions and the answers, which is kind of not playing fair with the other contestants and with audiences where quizzes are not supposed to be rigged. Well, what happened was Van Doren was a bit of a pussy, if you don't mind my saying so. There was another guy who confessed beforehand, prior to Van Doren, and that guy came forward willingly. And then it was Van Doren who had to be who was denying everything and ducking the questions, and he hid until he was essentially forced to come forward and admit, yes, I cheated, that I was coached to cheat. They wanted me to cheat. It's not like I did the chicanery. That was part of the machine of the show, that they wanted to feed me answers, and I did. And shame on me. And Van Doren did not sink into a hole or commit suicide. He wrote more books, and I don't know if he ended up still teaching, but he ended up having a pretty good life after all of that. But yeah, this was the day that he was forced to kind of come out and say, was not on the up and up. So my gosh, I think Cynthia and Jeff are 5-0 in our yesterday quiz. Let's get to our next question today. Yesterday, 1960, the verdict came down in the obscenity trial against Penguin Books in England. They won, and they wound up selling 3 million copies of the unexpurgated version of this final book by author D.H. Lawrence. What was the book's title? So this was 1960, right? Wow, almost 60 years old today, November 2nd. So there was a trial in England with Penguin Books wanting to publish a book. It was an obscenity trial. And the publisher, Penguin, won the trial, won the suit, and got to publish this book, which sold 3 million copies. Written by D.H. Lawrence. What was this book? And we have an answer from Cynthia and Jeff to this question. In 1960, D.H. Lawrence's final book. Now, if you know D.H. Lawrence, who wrote Sons and Lovers, that we all had to read in junior high school, or high school as I recall. And I should know some more of his books, but I don't. He wrote The Fox. But this book was Lady Chatterley's Lover, which was steamed by some as obscene, and by others as, oh, come on, it's 1960. As a matter of fact, one of the things that tanked the prosecution's case, according to Wikipedia, is that the prosecutor seemed really out of touch with the mores of the time and the freeing of language and thought. And he, the prosecutor asked, quote, if Lady Chatterley's Lover was the kind of book you wish your wife or servants to read. Oh, isn't that marvelous? That's so English of the time. Would this be a book that you would give to your servants to read? Oh, I think not. Funny how my Englishman sounds exactly like my Irishman, but there you go. And I think this is amazing now, because we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 questions done out of our 8-question quiz today. And Cynthia and Jeff have gotten all of them right. I don't know if they've ever been, I don't want to give it, as the Jewish people say, a kanina hara, the evil eye, and jinx it for them, but I believe they're 6-0. So woo, let's see how you're all doing with the last couple of questions of our yesterday quiz, November 2nd. Yesterday, 1964, CBS bought an 80% share in this non-television company. Was it the New York Yankees, Pan Am Airlines, RKO Pictures, White Castle? And this was back in 1964, the year I was born. CBS, the television company, bought an 80% share in this non-TV company. Was it the Yankees, Pan Am, RKO Movies, or White Castle Hamburgers? Take a moment, won't you? Although I think we have my answer already, but is it the correct one? And they jumped on this one super quick. I mean, I think they answered this one before I even finished giving all of the multiple choices here. But you are correct again, so I can't stop you today. The answer is the Yankees. CBS, can't imagine this, man. In 1964, CBS paid $11 million. There are houses in the harbor now that cost $11 million. The CBS paid $11 million for an 80% share of the New York Yankees on this date. And then they bought up like the other 20%. But in 1973, they sold it to a consortium headed by the one and only George Steinbrenner. Thus began the Steinbrenner era. And amazingly, this is the way I guess the Yankees were back then. In the 60s, they were, I guess, on a downslope because CBS paid $11 million and got back only $9 million. They took a $2 million loss on the Yanks. But today, according to Wiki, the team is worth $3 billion. Wow, not the best investment for the I network. Anyway, 7-0 for Cynthia and Jeff as we head to the last question of our yesterday quiz here on Dave's Gone By. Are you ready? I know you are. Yesterday, Fox TV. And remember, no wikiing, no Googling, do this on your own, folks. Yesterday, Fox TV debuts a groundbreaking sitcom about a rich but dysfunctional family. The stars include Jason Bateman, Portia de Rossi, Jessica Walter, and Michael Cera. Name that show. I'll give you another moment. I'll reread the question. On this date, and oh my gosh, I forgot to put the year down. Let me find that year. Forgive me for my mistake. And already Cynthia and Jeff are chiming in with an answer. Let me just. Oh wow, it was 2003 that this first aired. I can't believe it's that long ago. 2003, Fox TV debuted this groundbreaking sitcom about a dysfunctional rich family. The stars included Jason Bateman, Portia de Rossi, Jessica Walter, Michael Cera, narrated by a guy who helped it happen, Ron Howard. And yes, Cynthia and Jeff, you are perfect guys today. You rocked it. The answer is RDev, Arrested Development. It started on Fox. They canceled it. And then it got picked up by Netflix for 2 more seasons. And I think the most recent RDev was just a year ago or something. It was conceived by Ron Howard with Mitchell Hurwitz writing it. And I remember seeing that very first season of Arrested Development, not knowing what to expect and not knowing what to make of it. I got it on DVD and I started watching it, and it's brilliant. Some of the recent, I saw one of the post-network TV seasons, wasn't as great, but boy, oh boy, that first season or 2 was absolutely this incredible, like, oh, wow, there's some genius comedy going on here. So if you've never seen any RDev, highly recommend it. Anyway, I recommend you stay tuned to more of this program. It's called Dave's Gone By with me, Dave Lefkowitz. We do it every Saturday from 9 until noon or thereabouts Eastern Time here in the Daverhood. This is our 719th episode of the show. We're calling it King Cole because in just a little while, Darren Lee Cole, the founder, artistic director of Soho Playhouse, will be with us. He's also the director of a play there that's running through November 24th called Games. He's going to tell you all about it. We've also got our Colorado Limerick of the Damned coming up and more of Storytime about those farty fish. But before all that, you know that I'm a theater geek, a theater person, a playwright, an actor, a director of sorts, certainly a theater journalist and theater critic. So I love theater to pieces. I love going to Broadway and off. And I like to talk a bit about the theater on every episode of the show in a segment that we call Inside Broadway, where, it's where I can tell you, hey, you know everything about what's going on in movies and music and TV. That's everywhere. It's every page of every newspaper you open up. It's every advertisement will pop up that hits you on Facebook or Twitter, whatever else you're looking at. But how about a little love for the theater? Inside Broadway, a look at theater on and off Broadway and beyond. Brought to you by Total Theater and Performing Arts Insider. Curtain going up. Inside Broadway we go, ladies and gentlemen, here on this Saturday, November 2nd, 2019. Going to talk to you about the theater that I do love. And let's see, what else we're going to let you know. There's a show, actually, that I should be seeing this evening, a couple of days before opening. Kind of excited about this, because this coming Thursday, November 7th, at the Lunt-Fontanne Theater on Broadway, Tina, the Tina Turner musical, one of the more hotly anticipated, shall we say, jukebox musicals and bio musicals, is opening on Broadway. It's got a book by a very acclaimed playwright, Katori Hall, who's also writing it with Frank Ketelaar and Keys Prinz. I don't know who those people are. Felida Lloyd is directing. And the point is, it really looks like this could be a big star turn for Adrienne Warren, who is playing Tina either 6 or 7 times a week. Her Wednesday matinee and other Tina is Nkeki Obi Melekwe. She's the Tina alternate. But the main Tina is Adrienne Warren, and she's going to be doing those songs. So What's Love Got to Do with It? And one of the great pop numbers of all time, River Deep, Mountain High. I'll bet you the first act kind of climaxes with the creation of that number and what Phil Spector put Tina Turner. I mean, I hope to watch that. That's pretty dramatic. So yeah, it's all about Turner's humble beginnings in Tennessee, her rise to stardom, and I imagine her issues with her not very nice husband, Ike. So the show debuted in London in 2018. It's still running there at the Old Witch Theatre. And Adrienne Warren, by the way, already has a Tony nomination for the show Shuffle Along from 2 seasons back. So looking forward to seeing Tina Hall tonight. I'll report back to you next week about it. But it is officially opening on Broadway this Thursday. Well, let me give you some. I hope I got the right. Oh no, did I? Oh no, did I forget to bring the playbill for it? I believe I did. I can get it for you in a second if you just allow me. Oh, here we go. I found it. So, about a week ago, I did go see a show that opened on Broadway. It's a roundabout theater production of the Tennessee Williams romantic comedy. Yeah, that's not an oxymoron. That's an actual thing. A Tennessee Williams romantic comedy called The Rose Tattoo. And all right, I'll give you a bit of the plot here. The plot has to do with this woman. She loves her husband, right? Even though he's a truck driver, drives banana trucks across the border, and he's not actually transporting bananas, but he makes a good living. And she has, like so many Tennessee Williams women have, this lustful physical connection. But unlike some of the other Williams people who have to hide it, or, you've got Maggie and Cat on a Hot Tin Roof in wanting to just get some kind of sexual stuff from her husband to make babies. But no, this is Serafina. She is in lust with her husband, which is great, except I'm not giving too much away here to say that he does die. We don't even meet him. He dies early in the play, and then she's a widow and she's in mourning, which affects her daughter, who is of dating age, and that becomes something of a problem. And then in the second act, Serafina meets a man who is surprisingly like her late husband in a lot of ways. Not a doppelganger. In fact, we end up finding out why, in some ways, he's so much like her husband. But and then they meet and they spar, and there's absolute spark that she's trying to, she's still a widow, she's still devoted, she's got her husband's ashes in an urn, that she's almost praised to, or she certainly prays for every day. But at the same time, it's like, is it a sign? You finally meet a man who is going to make you go, it's been 3 years. I'm still a young woman with desires. This is the guy. So there's all this going on. And as I said, the most surprising thing about this Williams play is it doesn't turn tragic, except for, the husband dying early in the show. It doesn't turn sad or melodramatic and terrible. It's a romantic comedy of a woman who finds love again while she's still young-ish, right? And there's a lot of comedy between her and Mangiacavallo, the new truck driver who comes into her life. There's a nice romantic scene for her daughter and the soldier that she meets, and they're kind of falling in love, and she wants to be physical with him, and he's trying to be a nice guy about it. So these are the two things that are balancing each other out in this mostly comic play. Comic to the end, right? Doesn't start light and then tail down. It's basically a nice romantic comedy all the way through. I saw the show several years ago on Broadway with Mercedes Ruehl. It was my first rose tattoo, if you will, and loved it. I think it's a lovely play. It's funny if you do it right. It's heartwarming. It's sexy, and it is touching in certain places. And that to me, that production remains the benchmark of rose tattoos. Seeing the one on Broadway right now, that is at the Roundabouts American Airlines Theater, and features Marissa Tomei in it as Serafina, and a fellow named, where is, I didn't, shame on me for not getting his name here, but I will get that for you momentarily. Just thank you for your patience. Here we go. We have, it's not him. Hold on, where is he? Eamon Elliott is the fellow who plays the new guy in her life. So he's very lively, and it's funny, there were scenes that reminded me of the relationship between, in the movie Swept Away, if you remember that old Lina Wertmuller film, between Giancarlo Giannini and, was it Marangelo Mulatto was her name, even though those were rich people, but there was that certain look and chemistry together. And they're very lively and very fun together in this staging of the play, which is directed by Trip Cullman. My problem with the show, and a lot of critics have this problem, is it's kind of all over the place in a way. I mean, it knows it's a comedy. It's not suddenly trying to make it terribly tragic, but at the same time, sometimes it's way too broad and silly. The people have commented about the set design where on one level, you've got this beautiful projection of water because it's taking place in Florida, and you've got this nice waterscape that you're watching behind you, which adds to the romance, adds to the feeling of the show. But then there's like 200 plastic pink flamingos in the back of the stage. And I mean, not real ones, not actual flamingos projected on screen, but these plastic pink flamingos for a suburbia that this show really isn't about. This is about an Italian enclave in Florida where they don't have a lot of money, where she's a seamstress for basically all her friends and trying to desperately to make dresses for them as well as her daughter's graduation. So I don't understand what the set was trying to be. Why do we need to take this beautiful set that would be fine for a comedy and then joke it up in a way with this extraneous stuff? So the show, which is, it's a Tennessee Williams show, it goes 2.5 hours, but it moves, it's lively, it's watchable, it's entertaining, but it's missing any depth or poetry or any sense of reality. It just never really felt real to me. And Tomei can act. And there are moments, especially when she's feeling grief, when she learns of the death of her husband, that in a different production, we would really feel. That is real, explosive grief at a terrible tragedy in her life. And but in this production, we just don't completely buy anything. And I have to chalk that up, I guess, to the director. And the cartoonishness is a problem. There's funny is great. I love funny, but zany, cartoonish, funny for the wrong kind of play, not so much. And as much as there's fun between Tomei and Eamon Elliott, and a lot of comedy, sitcom comedy that they turn it into, not a lot of heat, not a lot of passion. We don't really feel like, oh, he's got the smell of roses in his hair, and it's like, oh, and I feel the tattoo of the rose on the chest, and I feel it on my chest, and all that stuff. Like it's very Williams-esque of old school. They could play that more real and still not risk turning it into a dark drama. And I think I make it clear that this is it's a near miss. I like the two people playing the young people, Ella Rubin and Burke Swanson. They're more believable. They almost feel like they're in a different play, which is a problem. And one could say that Tennessee Williams was almost the beginning of magic realism. So there's a lot of coincidence in the play, stuff that you're kind of taking on faith and isn't necessarily realistic. But just because it's not always 100% realistic doesn't mean you have to turn it into kind of a phony, cartoonish fantasy. Well, anyway, I would give this about 2 3/4 stars. I can't quite recommend this Rose Tattoo. If it's your first thing, you've never seen the play, you don't know the play, it is worth a look, and you won't have a bad time with it. It's just not what it could have been and what I've seen the Rose Tattoo be. So make your own decisions on that. It is at the American Airlines Theater, a Roundabout Theater production through December 8th, a limited run, because Marissa Tomei is taking a break from movies to be able to do the theater. Well, by the way, speaking of the theater, I want to remind you that we do this segment, our Inside Broadway segment, on Dave's Gone By every week through the kind auspices of our friends at TotalTheater.com. Now, this is an absolutely free website of theater articles and theater reviews from all over the country and all over the world. So you go to the Criticopia section and you can read reviews of all the Broadway shows. You can read off-Broadway reviews, regional theater, international theater, even festivals from like the past 15 years now or more, all at TotalTheater.com. Spell it theater, E-R or R-E, it's fine. We have both of the URLs. Plus, if you go to the Periodica section, we've got some articles and interviews there as well, all celebrating with a critical eye, but a great deal of love, the theater that we love. And that's why we're doing Inside Broadway here on Dave's Gone By every week. I'm going to do another review for you because I saw another revival this past week or weekend. And it's telling, and I'm not name dropping because I didn't get to meet him, but at intermission, seeing this show was Lin-Manuel Miranda. Was there and he was talking to people in the lobby and being really nice and humble and cool and all that kind of stuff that you want Lin-Manuel Miranda to be. But why would Lin-Manuel Miranda, who's got Hamilton playing on Broadway and Freestyle Love Supreme playing on Broadway, take out a Saturday matinee to see a show? And it occurs to me it has to be because this show had to be really seminal and instrumental in making him think of the kind of musical theater that he wanted to do. Because back in the early 1980s, 1983 actually, Little Shop of Horrors must have come as a real breath of fresh air. It was, you had Hair as a rock musical and then Grease as sort of an off-Broadway musical with rock and pop made good. But this was a real melding of a sense of some old-fashioned musical comedy chops, but also a real off-Broadway aesthetic and feeling to it, and a little bit dark in its comedy, as well as music that ranged from kind of Broadway-ish and ballads to doo-wop 1950s pop that Alan Menken, our friend of the Daverhood and the composer with Harry Ashman of Little Shop of Horrors, knew about and brought to the theater. So this was their first real big hit, Little Shop of Horrors, back in 1983. Well, they have brought it back off-Broadway to the West Side Theater, which is a theater that I absolutely love, right on West 43rd Street. Went to see it, and what did I think of it? I had only one real criticism of this revival, of Little Shop of Horrors. It's a fairly big one, though, and it made me think in the first 5-10 minutes like I wasn't going to like it. And it's simply that I know it's a rock and roll musical. I know that the actors have to be heard, but the sound design and the orchestration and the amplifying, very tinny, a little too loud, and not balanced, so that when the show is opened, of course, by those 3 African-American urchins who are kind of like the chorus, the Ronettes, if you will. In fact, one of them is named Ronette. So they're there to set the scene and sing some doo-woppy stuff, and we want to hear them. We want to hear what the hell they're singing, whether they're singing individually or as a chorus, and it's not because I'm mostly deaf in this ear. It's just like, I'm sitting there and I'm seeing them, and one of them is an absolutely fabulous dancer, by the way. They're all good dancers, but one you just can't take your eyes off. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, oh crap, is the whole show going to sound like this? Is it going to be all just one tinny squall and too loud? It gets better than that. So they don't necessarily fix that design, because throughout the show, whenever the 3 of them are singing, I'm like, I give up. I have no idea what the hell they're saying. But for the rest of the show, I got to say, it's a really good time to see Little Shop of Horrors again. You know the story of it, right? You've got this nebbishy guy, orphan fella named Seymour, who works by the auspices of his boss in a flower shop on Skid Row. So Seymour, he's got nothing to his name, and the nice flower shop owner, Mr. Krelborn, he at least, gives him a place to stay, some food to eat, but he also works Seymour to the absolute bone every waking hour. He's dealing with the plant shop, or he would be if they were selling any plants. They're not making any money at all, and Mr. Mushnick feels that he's got to. It's Seymour Krelborn, and Mr. Mushnick owns the shop, but he's about to close the shop. Except Seymour, of course, has been working on a very special plant, a plant that he bought from a guy during an eclipse, and there's something weird about the plant. Nobody's ever seen anything like it before. And he starts tending to it, and people become interested. They put the plant in the window, and people go, what is that interesting plant? I don't know, but while I'm here, I'll take 50 roses. And suddenly that plant turns everything around in the shop. There's only one problem. If you know Little Shop of Horrors, you know the problem with Audrey 2, the plant. Audrey 2 being named after Seymour's crush, Audrey, who works also at the shop. And she, if you remember Steve Martin in the movie, she is the girlfriend of an extremely sadistic and sick and abusive boyfriend who could be nothing else but a dentist. So that's her basic plot outline. And this idea that Audrey has a taste, not for water, not for fertilizer, not for Job spikes, but for a spike of a very different kind in humans. And so there's the setup. The show still works like gangbusters most of the time. You've got Tammy Blanchard playing Audrey. She's doing it in quite a mannered way. I mean, it's kind of hard to wipe out memories of Ellen Green from what I hear of the original and from the movie. But Blanchard makes it her own. She's a little bit, sometimes a little, I guess, punch-drunk woozy is how she plays it, because she's always getting knocked about by her boyfriend. But she does rock the show's great ballad, Somewhere That's Green, absolutely out of the park. If you're looking for a great show song, a great 1980s theater ballad, Somewhere That's Green is it. It's perfectly in character. The writing, congratulations to Howard Ashman and Alan Menken, is just so smart and clever, but it's not jokey. And she just, that brings a little tear to the old eye when Tammy Blanchard sings it in Little Shop of Horrors. And that's an absolute high point of the show, as it should be. The plant is pretty cool. He's pretty scary when he has to be. And I also liked, the cast is really, really good. I liked Mushnick. I forgot to put down the actors' names, but they're quite good. And Christian Borle. Now, he's the guy who was in Something Rotten a couple of years ago on Broadway. Very talented actor. He's not going to erase memories of Steve Martin in the film, but he's still very, very good and funny as the dentist who has a talent for causing things pain. But then, the dentist not to give anything away, but he leaves the scene fairly early-ish in the show. Borle comes back as several other characters. This is something they can't do in the movies. But Borle ends up playing these other very quick cameo roles, and those are even funnier. And those are definitely worth catching in like the second act. So basically, the only other, I mentioned that I had only one big problem with this revival of Little Shop, and that was it. It was the sound design. But it is a little tough sometimes in the second act, little second act trouble, because we care about these people. We care about Seymour and Audrey. We like them. We even care about Mr. Mushnick, even though he treats Seymour rather badly. And the movie that this is based on, of course, and the storyline has to treat them as disposable towards the end, because it's a comic mock horror movie. And that doesn't jive necessarily with what we want to see in a musical when we're rooting for all these characters, and suddenly they're disposed of, if you will, in a jokey way. Not to mention, it's a little tough to finesse the way Audrey is treated by her boyfriend in the woke era that we're living. They manage it, and it's a musical. We'll get it. But at the same time, when she comes in with a broken eye, a broken arm, and like a black and blue mark under her eye, and we see her being smacked in a comic way, it's a little tough now to pull off, perhaps in a way that it wasn't in the 80s, or even, I think they revived Little Shop on Broadway in the early aughts or the late 1990s. I got to check that. But anyway, I'm going to give Little Shop of Horrors 3.25 stars. So I am absolutely recommending it. It's off-Broadway at the West Side Theater right in Midtown. Definitely recommended, and very happy to remind you every week about this, because again, our friend at the Daverhood, Alan Menken, co-wrote it. So congratulations to him on that. Just have a couple of minutes left for Inside Broadway before we go off Broadway to talk to Darren Lee Cole of the Soho Playhouse. Have a little sad Broadway news to report that on Halloween, just day before yesterday, singer and actress Anne Crum passed away at the age of 69. She'd been battling ovarian cancer for about 4 years. Born in Charleston, West Virginia, Crum studied violin. And this is her life. She was getting pretty good on the violin until she went horseback riding, fell from the horse and broke her arm. And then that was it. She then took a job in medicine, but while she was still thinking of what she wanted to be, she got a gig on tour in a show called El Grande de Coca-Cola, if anybody remembers that one. And then theater beckoned. So she got on Broadway in Les Mis, and the Broadway musical Chess, and she, in England, was specifically picked by Andrew Lloyd Webber to star in his new musical. It was called Aspects of Love. That did pretty well in the UK. She came to perform it on Broadway, and it was a flop here. It just didn't go. But it's pretty neat to be chosen by Andrew Lloyd Webber back in the day. Anne Crum was. She did not have good luck with new musicals on Broadway, though. She was also the star of the Broadway flop Anna Karenina about 20 years ago now or so, if anybody remembers that one. But hey, she did pretty well on the road. She toured in Man of La Mancha featuring John Cullum, not too shabby. And also when she wasn't singing and dancing and acting, Anne Crum did a lot for animals, the animal world. She was devoted to animal rescue and adoption. So we bid a fond farewell to the late actress Anne Crum, who passed away yesterday passed away on Halloween, on Thursday, at the age of 69. But then let's move on to happier things, perfectly timed for post-Halloween. Let's give Wicked a wow. Congratulations to the long-running Broadway musical, very long-running, as a matter of fact, because with performance number 6,681, this past Monday, October 28th, at the Gershwin Theater, Wicked passed the aforementioned Les Mis to become the 5th longest running Broadway show in history. So big, and well deserved. I loved seeing Wicked. I mean, it's the best musical ever. but it's got some really good songs in it. It's got a wonderful book, great story. So I remember a lot of the critics poo-pooing it when it opened. No, it's great stuff if you've never seen Wicked. And now it is the 5th longest running Broadway show in history. You want to know the others? Of course you do. First longest running show, we all know, Phantom of the Opera. And just for comparison's sake, just so you know, Wicked is coming, past 6,600 shows. Phantom has gone past 13,200 shows. And then behind that, Chicago, Lion King, Cats, which closed years ago. But anyway, Wicked opened on October 30th, so it was a real Halloween kind of a show, 2003, and started its 17th year this past Wednesday. So congratulations. Speaking of things that are 17 years old, our dog, who is sleeping since I've changed his diaper, and this program, Dave's Gone By, which began in October of 2002, and we are now in our 719th episode. You can find out more about us at davesgoneby.com, DAVESGONEBY, davesgoneby.com. You can also write to me, davesgoneby@AOL.com. Check my Twitter feed at RadioDave2, the number 2. But yeah, it's our 719th show on this Saturday, November 2nd, 2019, and we're calling this episode King Cole, because we're gonna talk to one of the kings of off-Broadway. He is the owner and proprietor of the Soho Playhouse. He's also directing a show there called Games that is happening as we speak and running through November 24th. I'm not going to be talking to Darren Lee Cole in a moment or two. No. We have the one, the only, the Jewish Rabbi Saul Solomon in the Daverhood, and he will do the honors because the show that Darren Lee Cole is directing called Games has to do with the 1936 Olympics, so it's perfectly timed. We're going to get Darren Lee Cole with us momentarily. Until then, let's hear some klezmer. Shalom, my friends. Shalom, my enemies. This is your old pal, Rabbi Saul Solomon, the founder and spiritual leader of Temple Sons of Bitches in Great Neck, New York. And it is exciting for me to talk about the theater, to talk about not just Broadway, as I talk to a lot of Broadway people, but off and off Broadway as well. And we're very, very excited to be talking to someone who is a director of long standing and also someone who actually owns a theater in New York. It's on Van Dam Street. It is called, or as I like to call it, Van Dammit Street. It is the Soho Playhouse. We have with us a fellow named Darren Lee Cole. He studied theater at USC in California. He has even a theater now in Costa Rica. I don't know how the hell that happened. But ladies and gentlemen, would you please put your Megillas together and welcome to the Daverhood, Darren Lee Cole. Shalom, Darren.
Shalom. Glad to join you today.
Very glad to have you on the program. How are you? How are you doing?
I'm very well, thanks. Very excited about the shows that we have going on at the Soho Playhouse. So we're off to a great start to the season.
Well, let me ask, first of all, you're directing one of the shows. It's called Games, and it involves Jews. Talk to me. What is it about?
So Games is a very fascinating story. Many people know of the Jesse Owens story from the 1936 Olympic Games held in Berlin. together games that Adolf Hitler was going to use to show Aryan supremacy, which famously from Jesse Owens and others blew up in his face.
Right.
There's a remarkable story, true stories of two women that attempted two Jewish women that attempted to make that 1936 German Olympic team. One of them, a internationally famous fencer named Helena Meyer, and the other, a well-known within Germany and Europe championship high jumper named Gretel Bergmann. So this is the story of those two women and their journey to attempt to make the 1936 Olympic team, all the politics that went into that, including America's first threatened boycott of an Olympic Games over Hitler's not allowing Jews onto that team. And Helena Meyer actually famously was sort of the focal point and focus point of Germany relenting and allowing Jews, and I use Jews very euphemistically. She, in fact, was the only Jew that ended up on the 1936 German Olympic team.
Wow. Well, I mean, it's kind of interesting, this idea of having an internationally known fencer. Never occurred to me that could ever happen.
Well, her story is really quite remarkable. And in fact, the complexity of the play is that she was an athlete. I mean, she famously said, and we use it throughout the show and in the opening monologue, she says, she said famously, I'm not a German, I'm not a Jew, I'm not an Aryan, I am a fencer. And she very famously tried to separate her fame from her sport, from politics at all. And her point of view was politics have no place in sport. And as the play, in fact, develops, Gretel Bergmann, who is rising through the ranks and is not provided the same opportunities as Helena Meyer, says, well, that's all fine and good for you to say because you've got the platform. What about us that don't get that platform? So that's sort of the basic drama involved in the play.
Now, let me ask, how did you, this was written by a fellow named Henry Naylor. How,
yes.
You must get zillions of scripts across the transom. How did you come across this play and then choose to direct it?
Well, that's interesting you asked that. I'm glad you did, because it will give me a chance to shamelessly promo what's coming to the theater. I go around the world now. Part of the terrific part of my job is I go around the world now to various fringe festivals all over the world. In Edinburgh, which is the largest one, massive. I've also been to Adelaide this last season, in Australia, Auckland and Vancouver and Orlando here in the States, amongst many others.
Newark? Have you been to Newark?
Pardon me?
Have you been to Newark?
I have not been to the Fringe Festival in Newark, although I've been to the airport in Newark. It seems like every other Tuesday.
All right, so but continue, please. Yeah. So and then you brought that back.
Henry Naylor is really gaining traction in these various festivals. Many of these festivals, especially the top festivals, will award various prizes for playwriting, best overall production. And Henry Naylor is quite prolific writer that over the last 7 to 10 seasons has sort of been mopping up with these awards at various festivals. And I went to see others of his plays that take on very sensitive topics, specifically in and around politics as they pertain to the Middle East. He's very unafraid, and it's very volatile writing, stuff I love. So I had seen plays of his, award-winning plays in the past, and Henry's writing had been on my radar. So then this last season in Edinburgh in August, I saw this production of Games, and I was just blown away by it, and told Henry that I run something called the Fringe Encore Series at Soho Playhouse, which takes the top couple of shows from each of these festivals, brings them all together into New York at the end of the year. It will be this year from November 27th till the new year at Soho Playhouse. The top shows from all these festivals come together for what we call the Fringe Encore Series.
But the thing is, you saw a production of Games.
I saw 2 productions of Games, one at the Edinburgh Festival, and then, in fact, it was quite an interesting story. It was quite a cliffhanger for me, even though the play is not a cliffhanger. We know what happens. 3/4 of the way through watching the play when I'm in Edinburgh last summer, gentleman in my row has a heart attack.
Oh.
So the play, yeah, very serious. So literally right out of the movies, stood up, is there a doctor in the house sort of business.
Wow.
So they stopped the show, and I never actually saw it, and I was loving that play. But it was at the very end of my season in Edinburgh, and I had to leave something the next day or whatever. So it took me to the following January in Adelaide, Australia, to see the conclusion of that play. So the ultimate cliffhanger for me.
But why would you chose to come and direct your own version as opposed to importing the production that you had seen?
Yeah, that's it. So in these festivals, often the format is that you have to fit within an hour slot. It's all enormously and rigorously scheduled, very tightly scheduled within the hour. So sometimes you can just sort of tell, and this was the case with games, that the writer had a slightly bigger idea that was clearly making concessions to fit inside the hour format. So I spoke to Henry who was in Australia, and we met up, and we had known each other for a couple of seasons at this point, and we talked about it, and I said to him, it feels like that hour wants to be more like an 80 or 90-minute play and investigate some of these ideas a little further. He absolutely agreed, and that's sort of where we made the pact to work on the show a bit, expand it a bit, and bring it to New York.
Isn't that wonderful when a director tells you your play needs to be longer?
Yeah, I know. He fell down. It's like you're the first person ever to say that.
Now, let me ask you a question here. One of the things that's on your bio and on your resume, people may not know your name necessarily, but they will know somebody that apparently you learned directly from. Have you ever watched The Paper Chase, the TV dramedy that you used to be on, 30, 40 years ago? And the guy playing Professor Kingsfield, the most scary law professor of all, played by a fellow named John Houseman, who came out of Orson Welles' stable of actors and performers.
Yeah, actually, he and Orson were sort of co-directors of what was called the Mercury Theater together.
So how?
And like Orson, John was, Mr. Houseman was one of those forces of the theater who could write and direct and act and do scenery and do the lighting and truly understanding the entire concept of presenting a live piece of theater. So I was very, very fortunate. And then again, where I went to USC, furthered by another gentleman named John Blankenship. I was very fortunate to be schooled by these old guard of learning everything about the theater was to learn the theater. So of course, like many young people, I went to USC aspiring to be an actor and was fairly good at it and attaining some sort of success.
What was the most, the highest level that you achieved? Was it an off-Broadway show? Was it a big show in LA? What was your big thing?
Yeah, I've done shows sort of, I wouldn't say a big show in LA, but when I was in college, I was working what would be equivalent to off-Broadway there on the smaller theaters on Melrose and whatnot. I moved to New York very early when I was just 21.
Wow.
And so I've spent the last, coming on to 40 years, working off-Broadway in New York specifically.
So what are some of the shows what are some shows that you did as an actor here that were particularly memorable in your years as an actor?
Memorable is a very double-edged word. Some made memorable for the wrong reasons. But I wouldn't say that it would be misleading to say that I had any real success as an actor per se.
Could you feed yourself? Did you have to have day jobs, or could you at least make enough, even though you weren't quite a success, but you could live?
Well, that was the key to being able to do everything. Of course, like most people working to the theater, coming to New York, in my case, the early 80s, I spent a good swath of years working in restaurants and bartending, waiting tables, and having a side job. But I got to transform into making full-time living in theater fairly early because of my ability to do more than act. That I had experience as a director, that I had experience as a stage manager coming out of school, being trained by the John method of doing everything. I fairly quickly began to be able to make a living in theater because my my purview was larger than just acting.
Right.
And then I really got involved in the production of theater and ran the theaters as the booking agent on Theater Row, if people remember those, all back in the 80s.
Yes.
And sort of, fortunately, by loving the entire process, quickly was able to make a full-time living at theater.
So how did you go from being as it were, a jack of all trades, which is a wonderful thing in theater, to saying, there's this theater down on Van Dam Street.
Right.
It seems available-ish.
I learned fairly early on, especially because I was making some money by being the booking agents for various, at one time or another, I think I had counted almost 40 off-Broadway theaters. And I realized that to do what I wanted to do artistically, which was really produce and direct plays,
right?
Which I sorted out in my 30s. That's really what I wanted. I realized the theater, the venue, is the coin of the realm. So finding any way, shape, or form to get a hold of a venue that could house the ideas I wanted to do, I realized was going to be the ultimate path to any sort of measure of success.
Fair enough.
So I had done a pretty famous or pretty well-known play I produced at the Soho Playhouse in the late 90s called Killer Joe, Tracy Letts' first big play.
Yeah.
And we had this, and I had a long history with that play, where we had originally actually started it with my friend David Magenthal from 29th Street Repertory Theater, a company I was very close with and loved their work. So anyway, this play developed. We ended up doing it in London to great success on the West End. And we brought it back with sort of a really stellar cast to do at Soho Playhouse in New York. We had Scott Glenn and Amanda Plummer, and at that time a relatively unknown Michael Shannon, and Michelle Williams was in it, and Sarah Paulson, and so we were just off to the races. It was an enormous success. And I had met the lady that was the grand dame of that building and had owned it since the bohemian days of the late 50s and early 60s with her late husband. Yeah. And I always mentioned to her that if anything ever happened with this theater, I would be first in line to do anything it took to try to get in here. And so long story short, I ended up with a long-term lease in 2004 on the theater and became artistic director at that time. And we've been charging along merrily since. Now,
it's a piece of real estate in Manhattan. Yeah. So even though you've got
I want to be clear that I don't own that piece of real estate. Right. I own the company, Soho Playhouse, Inc., that is, and also am the artistic director and chairman of the not-for-profit board that has a long-term lease in there. The building recently, and good news for the theater, and good news for the arts community in downtown New York, I'm jumping in because I see where your question is leading. The real estate is impossible virtually to survive it. Yeah. So we were very fortunate because that rare piece of real estate coming up for sale, which it did a couple of years ago. Every developer you can imagine was swooping in. I was going to the city, trying our landmark status and working with the great community board number 2 that really handles and takes care of the village and where we are as well. And just trying anything to try to find a way to not have a developer buy that building and make that great theater go away. Right. Well, long story short, after a bunch of false starts, we got very fortunate. Another non-for-profit, a school in the neighborhood, Little Red Schoolhouse, that many people know and love in our neighborhood, the Little Red Schoolhouse, another non-for-profit was able to put together a scheme where they buy the building and in turn gave Soho Playhouse their blessing and another long-term lease. Whoa. So we're very fortunate and very happy to have Little Red Schoolhouse, Elizabeth Irwin, little promo for them, step in and be our new landlords.
Well, it's like, because people know the old story that the public theater got its building for like $1. But I don't know if that'd be great if your lease was $1.
No, it's not, promise you it's not that, but I will say that they've been very workable and aware of the importance of keeping a small arts institution alive and well downtown.
Now you have two spaces, right, in Soho Playhouse for theater. You've got the upstairs, which has, what is it, 80 seats, 90 seats? How many you got there?
Yeah, so upstairs is almost 200. We've taken a few out. And it's right now 178 seats in what we call our main stage theater upstairs.
Yeah.
And then we have, which your listeners I'm sure would be interested in as well, a pal of mine who came to me through this encore series years ago. He's one of the few acts that's been encored a couple of times. A man named Daniel Kaner is doing something called the Jewish Chronicles.
Right.
Down in my cabaret space, which is our second space. Downstairs, we have a 60-seat bar, fully licensed bar, cabaret space where we have smaller acts and entertainment and comedy late at night down in our cabaret.
And I also read somewhere that, speaking of Jews, Ashley Blaker is
is coming. He is coming, I believe, in February. We'll have him in for 2 weeks. And if you don't know about Ashley, he's absolutely must see. Google him, and I'm sure anybody in the Newark area will want to come along and check him out. Daniel, for that matter, as well. Daniel sits at the piano and tells stories and sings wonderful songs.
Yeah.
And Ashley is a full metal stand-up, an unorthodox stand-up, shall we say?
And wait, that's using my line. Don't be stealing my comedy here.
Trust me, I'll leave that part of it to you.
So how do you choose, though? I mean, if you're directing a show, I want to do this play, I'm going to put this in the main stage, boom. But how do you fill out a season? Where do you do you get zillions of plays over the transom? Is it just the things you see at fringe festivals?
So that's unfortunately, and with the byproduct being a fortune for the Soho Playhouse, unfortunately, small theaters like mine are in peril and have been going away, especially downtown. That's unfortunate for my business. The fortunate part of that is that it puts my space in rather high demand. So I have a lot of shows from around the world and around the country and New York shows that are interested in trying to do their show off-Broadway. In that sort of downtown off-Broadway model, they come to me.
Well,
so I reserve 2 parts of the year for Soho Playhouse programming. The last 6 weeks of the year, basically, is this Fringe Encore series I've told you about, where all the best shows are coming in that I've booked in for that 6-week season. And then we'll take usually 8 weeks or so in the spring for the equivalency of the Games. Games was moved this year just for scheduling reasons. But I would normally take 8 weeks for whatever the Soho Playhouse's main stage production will be for the year. The rest of the time, I have a variety of ways I enter into deals. Sometimes a Soho Playhouse co-production. Sometimes somebody will just come in and rent the theater from us if we have available weeks to try their own idea. But I am always curating the overall sensibility and zeitgeist of what the theater is presenting.
Because I'm trying to get a handle on this because as I'm sure you must know, I have my own one-man comedy musical show, FYI. But
yes, I did my homework like a good boy before coming on with you.
So it's a work of genius. But here's the deal: how does a show as a theater company, if let's say you go, your space actually has, as you said, 170, 180 seats, but there are smaller theaters as well. How can any company come in and even not make even money, but break even, unless without doing like a Kickstarter? How do you, if it costs X amount to rent a theater and do advertising and pay for rights and do this and get the piano and how the hell? What is the magic secret of just not losing your shirt?
Well, so with that, I always resist, by the way, because it was said to me when I was a young person breaking into the theater, the classic, don't do it. How do you make $1 million in theater? Start with $1 billion. I've heard that my whole life. So, and the model is really tough. But I don't want to be discouraging, but you have to be a realist. I'm glad to hear you frame it the way you did.
Yeah.
Because to make money is often, especially at the lowest levels or even the mid-levels, pretty much a pipe dream. What I tell people, though, but there has to be a developmental phase, and there has to be a stepping stone so that you can move forward into a position where your project is worth money. What I tell people is that your first time that you have paid customers in front of you in our case, in New York, which is no small task, be that a workshop, be that an equity showcase code project or something, the net loss of that first production is your real investment in the idea. Because what you get for that net loss is what you have to look at. First of all, you have to manage not losing your shirt,
Right.
which you don't have to lose your shirt. And that's just tricks of the trades and know-how, knowing whom to hire, whom to advise you, how to get on a responsible economic course to begin with. So I always recommend, find a friend, find somebody that does what I do, to spend 10 minutes, 15 minutes with you, find ways. People are always inviting me out for a coffee.
Sure.
I say yes a lot, even though I'm very busy.
Oh.
Because
I'll take you. I'll take
into the system.
I'll totally take you for coffee. Did you drink Sanka? Is Sanka all right?
Well, not since the 70s. But I saw a tab the other day, so who knows what could come back.
There you go. All right, and learn from the people who know.
Yeah, and then also, and then being realistic about it. But people will also, and I'm a big proponent. You basically have to produce yourself almost at this point in and around New York to be seen. But if you get into a fringe festival, you get into there's 10 festivals I can think of off the top of my head in and around New York. And don't be afraid to go outside of New York. There was a great fringe that just happened in Scranton, in Pennsylvania, where a lot of emerging artists are going, and it's very economically reasonable to get an idea up there. And people like me and of my ilk are going there and looking at plays. You're more likely for somebody, from me, myself, or somebody from my theater to go to a small production of your play than ever reading a submission or listening to your CD.
Right.
Or that is what overwhelms us. And we always feel genuinely terrible because nobody is more sympathetic than us to the Herculean amount of work and effort every author or writer has put into what they submit to us. But we simply can't listen to it all.
Oh, sure.
And I would spend the rest of my life doing just that. So getting yourself up and in front of people so that even the smallest reviewer or radio show or something would see you and start any kind of buzz that myself or people like me are likely to hear, that's really the road.
We're talking with Darren Lee Cole. He is the director of the play Games, which is playing at the theater that he is artistic director of. It's at Soho Playhouse on 15 Van Dammit Street in the Village. You can find out more about it at sohoplayhouse.com. sohoplayhouse.com. It's running through November 24th. And you mentioned, so you've got Daniel Kaner as someone who comes to the theater. What else you got?
Chronicles. That's a blast.
The what
That's
Chronicles?
Really
what about, again?
Wonderful show.
The what Chronicles?
It's Jewish Chronicles, it's called.
Yes. Yes.
And Daniel had a huge hit with this show in years past at various festivals. And he's done other shows. He did one at our theater last year, I believe, called 21st Century Jew. And he grew up in London and in England, and he just sings sweet songs and tells sweet stories about his upbringing as a young Jewish lad.
Yeah, we know he's been on this program. He was on a couple of years ago, so we know.
Well, I'm proud to say Daniel's become a rather good friend over the years as well. So we love having him back.
No, what's coming into the main stage after your Games?
Okay, so Games is on through November 24th, and then we have a couple of days for Thanksgiving for the rest of the country. For us, we will be teching all of those shows. We have 18 shows that are coming in as part of the Fringe Encore series from November 27th until I think January 17th.
Now,
so there's a special website actually for that, but
you
can find everything on sohoplayhouse.com.
sohoplayhouse.com. Let me ask you, Darren Lee Cole, since you are not just a theater owner and producer, but a director, you mentioned all the stuff that you learned from John Houseman, but at some point you mentioned something called the Misner technique, not the Sandy Meisner, but the Misner technique of acting. What the hell is that?
Well, Meisner has been known to cause misery. So there you go.
Oh, is that really, that's the joke? It's Meisner's thing?
Yes.
Oh, Well, what's so horrible for our listeners who aren't theater people? Why is Meisner so difficult?
Well, if you've not been to Bill Esper's studio and had to repeat something for 2 hours, I guess it would be hard to be sympathetic. But those that have know what I'm talking about.
Okay, fair enough. Now, let's also talk. What I like to get is anecdotes and stories about people who everybody thinks they know because we've seen them on TV or in the movies. So let me ask you about some of the people that you've worked with. For example, director Ken Russell. It's funny, we were just talking about D.H. Lawrence, Dave was earlier in the show, and he directed.
That was amazing to work with Ken. Sadly, it was near the end of Ken's life. I think he just lived a couple of years longer.
Right.
But it was his one and only theater project. Obviously people know Ken from his famous movies.
Women in Love.
It was his one and only theater project, and it was incredible to see him work. And take the risk that he was taking as an elderly gentleman was really inspiring. And the set was crazy, and the play was called Mind Games, and it was just like that, a real head twister of a play. And he was outrageous and on the mark, and that was really great fun.
Well, how was he outrageous?
I saw a lot of his movies. Wow, he made some weird movies.
Oh, definitely. There was the one about the burning of the witches, and then the Devils. That was it. The Devils with Oliver Reed. But what was, when you say he was outrageous? Give us an example, or was he just outrageous in the play? Or did he?
No. He had very little filter as far as off stage. Beyond the play. Going out to dinner with him was Katie bar the door time. He would say anything to anybody at any time. He had no filter. But then on the play, all of a sudden one day, what was a regular nurse in the play would be in, a white spandex rubber gloves outfit the next day, because Ken had cooked, and red hair, because Ken had cooked something up the night before.
Okay, he was a brave soul. I mean, creatively brave soul, which we need in this world. Now, someone who comes from a whole other side of show business that apparently you worked with, Charlton Heston?
Yeah, actually, I was with Chuck Heston on 9/11 in Chicago. So that was amazing. When I spent a couple of years in Chicago working at various theaters, and there was a new project there, the Chicago Center for the Performing Arts. And one of the first shows that they were doing, it was just being built, and so in a barely ready state, they needed to hit an opening mark, and Charlton was committed to artistic causes as well as many other things in and around Chicago. He went to high school there, and that's his roots. New Trier, I believe, was his high school in Chicago. So anyway, a real simple play that they could do easily and get the center open was Love Letters.
Sure.
That Charles was going to do with his wife, Lydia Clark Heston. And so it was all set up, and opening night was scheduled for September 11th, 2001. And so literally I used to walk Charlton from his dressing room onto the stage each day, and walking him there that day, people interrupted us, and he was taken away. I think he might have been president of the NRA, in fact, at that time.
Yeah.
And then that's how 9/11. That's how I learned about 9/11. So that's my Chuck Heston 9/11 story.
Wow.
And I will say this: my friend Steve Heitner is another friend of mine. He's the actor many people know from Seinfeld. He plays Banyan, the comic everyone loves to hate, Ken Banyan, on Seinfeld. And so he's a great actor as well, and a good friend. He was doing a movie, and let's just say that he'd like to brag about who he was working with through all the time.
Sure.
And so I get a text I don't think we had text back then. I get a message from him saying, I'm working with Ben Affleck on a new movie. And so I just shot him a message back saying, well, I'm working with Ben-Hur.
That's some good name dropping, man. That's some good. Now, you mentioned when you guys were doing Killer Joe at the Soho Playhouse. This person's still alive, Amanda Plummer.
Yeah.
She has been known to sometimes be a little strange or difficult or whatever. Any problem, or was she great, or what? Any stories about her?
My experience with Amanda was wonderful.
Okay.
I mean, yes, with, she really helped solidify that cast
Really?
at the time. So quirky, yes, but I got a much cleaner dressing room, shall I say, out of the situation.
Oh, you have to explain. She was a neat freak. I don't know the
Well, not necessarily neat freak, but the dressing rooms were not so terrific. So one of her quirks was one day she said, "Can I move a couple of things out of the dressing room?" So I came back hours later, and Amanda, without any help, I don't believe, had taken every single thing outside of the dressing room and neatly piled it into our hallway there, and completely redone the dressing room so that you felt like you were walking into some kind of Zen palace instead of some sort of ratty downtown dressing room.
Okay. And did you sort of take that as a cue and leave it as she, maybe not as a Zen palace?
We left it alone, and we all lived happily ever after.
Well, I mean, even after Killer Joe was over, did you then move all the crap back into the room, or you thought, hey, you know?
It's been long trash since. I mean, that's a long time ago.
Sure. Well, and let me also ask you, did you work, because you were a downtowny kind of person, with Sam Shepard at all?
No, I never actually got to work with Sam, although I met Sam, and Sam was very encouraging towards our mission and the forming of our non-for-profit for Soho Playhouse, because I'm not sure if people are aware that building was one of the locations where Edward Albee had his playwriting unit back in the late 50s and the early 60s when it was called Van Dam Theater.
The Playhouse on Van Dam.
Yeah. So the first plays of Sam Shepard and Leroy Jones and all these famous writers were worked on and workshopped in that space. So Sam always felt an affinity to that space. And in fact, we were close to getting Sam to do what I thought was one of the best ideas I've had that was never brought to fruition. Another one of these encore plays that went on to great commercial success at our theater was called Crap 39, written by a gentleman named Michael Lawrence. And Crap 39 is based on Crap's Last Tape, and it's sort of a precursor to Crap's Last Tape. Michael had this idea, I want to get into a theater, and I want to record the tape that Crap listens to from his 39th birthday on my 39th birthday, and then put it away, and then God willing, 30 years later, I'll be the only actor ever to do Crap Last Tape and listen to my own voice at the critical moment. And so I remember saying to him, don't you think that's a little heavy for a birthday party?
That is a great, oh man.
So, but then anyway, that turned out to be a really meta kind of play and a real big hit, and people loved it. And Michael, just a great writer, and completely pulled off. And then it really became a pursuit of getting the rights to riff on Crap's Last Tape, and the Beckett estate is notorious for being incredibly stringent about the rights, and it's all about his pursuit. And it was about an hour-long show, and then this was right at the time where I was in communication with Sam Shepard, and he was encouraging about what I wanted to do and continue traditions that he felt a part of at that space. And I said to him, you know, the greatest idea would be to do a double bill, to do while Michael's still 39, have him do Crap 39. And Sam was just turning 69, I remember. And I said, and you at 69, you do Crap's Last Tape as a double bill. And he loved the idea, and he was all signed up for it. And then I think he had one of his famous being retained by the state of New Mexico for driving while under the influence at that time. So that got that off the rails. But anyway, there's my Sam Shepard story.
Wow. Is there somebody I haven't mentioned? Can you name drop someone?
Well, I don't like to name drop because it's particularly sensitive for what we do, because our whole thing is it's about ensemble theater, working ensemble. But I will have to mention, just because I'm such a fan of his now, and he's done a lot for the theater, Michael Shannon.
Oh, he was just on Broadway.
Michael Shannon, who has worked as an actor in Killer Joe at Soho Playhouse, and also as a producer and a presenter. We co-produced something called Excuse My Dust, a Dorothy Parker play that was wonderful. But Michael is probably the most dedicated and most talented actor that I've ever worked with and may have ever seen.
Whoa.
And he has an affinity and sort of emerged onto the scene partly through Soho Playhouse. So that's another great name association recently with the Playhouse.
Now, I do want to ask, we have a couple more minutes, if you don't mind, with Darren Lee Cole of the Soho Playhouse. One of the interesting things that's part of your bio is that you did a play about prison, Miguel Pinero's Short Eyes.
Yeah, Short Eyes.
You did it in prison, and it's about fakelas, gay people in prison. How did
actually, I have two such stories, believe it or not.
Yeah.
And also that inspired me to be very socially conscious in the work that we do at the theater, and also these experiences made me very aware of the power for good that theater can do in various situations. So Short Eyes is an expression for a child molester in prison, and it's the lowest form of life, even within the prison structure.
Right.
And these guys, I'm making up these numbers, so don't quote me, but it will make the point. They have like a 72-hour lifespan or something insane like that. Once they put them into the population and let the general population know what these guys did. Many of them don't make it out. So this was a play about a guy put into that in Sing Sing in New York, written by Miguel Pinero. Now, Miguel Pinero wrote this play as an inmate at Sing Sing. So it was totally realistic about what was going down in the day room and in the prison situation at that time in the 70s. The way he got to write this program, write this play, was a new program at that time where they were bringing arts inside of hardcore prisons. And like instead of, shock treatment, let's have a playwriting class.
Okay.
Remember, that was a really socially revolutionary idea at the time. And tried with the most extreme prisoners, of which Miguel Pinero was one of. So he wrote this play called Short Eyes that became very famous in the 70s. I believe Joe Papp and the public might have been the original backers and or big producers. And I remember that the public was involved in some way of bringing that play to the public and making it famous.
Yeah.
So then, when I was at USC, my second director, John Blankenship, put together a group of students that was going to go to the Edinburgh Festival. It was the first time I went to the Edinburgh Festival, which I believe was the summer of 1980, either 79 or 80. I think it was 80. And Short Eyes was one of the plays we did. We did 12 plays in rep. We did the first stage version of Tommy, I remember, ever up in that summer. We did 11 plays. It was like the pure Edinburgh experience for a young actor, designer, director. 11 shows in rep. So anyway, Short Eyes was one of them. And a Scottish producer who was working with prisons that was interested in Short Eyes, not only as a play, but because of the model of it coming from such a social program of bringing arts into prisons, had a connection with the most hardcore prison in Glasgow. That was a prison within a prison. Forgive me for forgetting the name of it. But it's a legendary prison. It's the hardcore prison of all Scotland in Glasgow. Ooh. So we were taken and bussed across the country. We were doing the show in Edinburgh, and we did that play inside the day room of the maximum security prison. And so there was us, the cast, I think there were 8 or 9 of us, about 15 prisoners, and about 20 guards. It was the craziest experience I've ever had in my life. And then we were matched up, I remember. So you were like one-on-one, an actor with an inmate after the show, with 2 very serious guys looking down at the conversation. Yeah, really intense. But the guy was not handcuffed or anything. And I remember chatting with him, and the ultimate compliment, he could not believe that we were actors. He was so convinced that what we were doing was such a part that, like, he thought we were on an exchange program from a prison in New York. He couldn't believe that we were not prisoners. He's like, how could you know all of that if you're not prisoners? So ultimate review was that he bought the authenticity of us completely. So that was great.
Yeah, it's like when people.
It was amazing to see how moved they were by the play.
It's like when people think I'm a real rabbi.
That a writer was a con. They couldn't believe it. Sorry.
Well, Mazel, no, I mean, I was wondering about how that I mean, if I were bringing a play of prison, I don't know, I might do Barefoot in the Park. Yeah.
No, I don't think the guy's going to sap through Barefoot in the Park.
All right, maybe The Odd Couple, 6 Rooms, Riverview. I mean, one of those. Don't know if I go into a prison and start doing a play about child molesters in prison. That's balls.
And so then it came back to me again. So this play, I've got, maybe there's a third chapter, because the second chapter, I remember being involved and seeing a production of it with HB Studios.
Oh.
And I remember Billy Cardiff was in it, or was directing it, and I think he was one of the original cast members from the public. So anyway, I knew the project through him was going to be totally legit. And I went and I saw it, and I told him the story. He's like, it's amazing because we've been invited to do the play in Sing Sing. And we were getting close to talking about maybe moving it. I didn't run the Playhouse, I don't believe, at this time, but I was interested as a producer, so I went with them. And for the second time, I experienced that play in a separate day room, this time in the actual day room of Sing Sing in New York.
Wow. I'm goosebumps, if you will. Just hearing these
so
stories.
Maybe there's a third chapter. And again, the beauty of the play is, for me, artistically, it's totally my cup of tea. Not just because it's hardcore and sort of rough edge, which I'm that is my style.
Yeah, it seems like with 29th Street Repertory and you like to play, because they used to do some rough stuff there.
But brutally honest, which is what I love. And I think that's what is served, that kind of play is really well served in what we do downtown at Soho Playhouse. That the fact that there's no screen, that you're in this intimate space right there with the actors, the way that you can represent honesty and reality and truth on that stage and in that unique relationship with an audience is what's kept me going for 40 years.
Well, it has been an honest delight chatting with Darren Lee Cole. Remember that you can find out everything that's going to be happening at Soho Playhouse, including the show by Daniel Kanger and, of course, Games, which Darren Lee Cole is directing, and that's running through November 24th. All that information, and of course also about the big Fringe Festival stuff, is at sohoplayhouse.com, sohoplayhouse.com. Last question for you. I understand you've got this Playhouse going on. I understand you love to go around. Who wouldn't want to go around the world and see different shows and bring them in? But what to just sort of go to Costa Rica one time and not just see a show or two, say, it'd be nice to have a theater here. And suddenly,
that's exactly what happened. I grew up on the coast of California, loving the ocean and swimming and body surfing basically my whole life with my brothers and my sister on the beach. But the one thing that California has that is pretty well known is freezing cold water. So we used to go in the coldest of water as kids, but we just loved playing in the water. So we used to euphemistically call it getting used to it, which basically was putting our bodies into a form of hypothermia in order to be able to play in the water.
Yeah.
So flash forward years to my first visit 20 or so years ago down to Costa Rica. I get into the water. It's the best waves of my life, and the water is 88 degrees. I said I'm never leaving. I'm never coming home. It was a dream come true. And so then I went there increasingly to visit, became close with people there, and started a small arts institution and theater there in a town called Teatro Jaco. Which the short end of that great story is I started teaching kids theater and started teaching kids as young as 10 and 11 Meister techniques that culminated a year and a half ago with me taking those kids as teenagers to the Edinburgh Festival in Scotland and performing with them at the Rose Theatre in Edinburgh.
Wow. Well, but how do you still have to run the theater? Or do you have other people? Because how do you do that and run Soho Playhouse and go around the country?
Like all people that I think have any measure of success, I owe it to the myriad of people that helped me, and specifically my point people, my staff, both in Soho, my staff in Costa Rica, and my staff that is now dotted around the world for Fringe Encores.
Right.
Impossible to do it without them. And I won't name names because then I'll start forgetting and feel terrible. So I just love them all and owe them all everything.
Well, I feel terrible all the time because I'm Jewish, but not when I'm talking to Darren Lee Cole. Darren, it just remains for me to thank you very, very much for spending this time with us in the Daverhood, to wish you success with games, to wish you success with Teatro Haka. What, Hako, did you say? Hako?
Yeah, Hako.
JACO, Hako in Costa Rica with the Fringe festivals as well, and everything you do at Soho Playhouse. Continued joy and success, and shalom to you.
Well, shalom, and thanks for a beautiful day in the Daverhood.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye now. What a delight. Oh, wow, what joy, what terrific wonder here, talking with Darren Lee Cole. It makes me want to dance a little bit of Daniel Kanger-esque klezmer music. If I could just get the volume up here. This is Dave will be with you in a moment. Oh boy, wasn't that great? Wasn't that just great to talk to? Don't know what. I ran outside. I ran around the block a couple of times and look at my hair. Just I've heard most of Rabbi Sal's conversation with Darren Lee Cole. So yeah, what a nice and interesting chat. If you love the theater and the arts, and of course I've been to so many shows at Soho Playhouse over the years. Everything from Grandma Sylvia's funeral, but other shows after that, and had really, really fine times. So. Definitely proud to promote that place on this program, and happy to have Darren Lee Cole as a friend of the Daverhood. And of course, it's so great to have all my Daverhoodies with me here on Dave's Gone By every Saturday from 9 until noon or thereabouts Eastern Time. We're doing our 719th episode of the show. I'm Dave Lefkowitz, by the way, in case you didn't know that. Just have my press pass up from the conference I was at last weekend. So what else do we have to do on today's show? We'll go a little past 12, as we almost always do. What are we going to be doing? Well, we have our Colorado Limerick of the Damned coming up. And we've got to do our Friends of the Daverhood. Did I miss anything else? Ooh. It is, ladies and gentlemen, the finale, if you will. The last gasp, the last gill of our long-running story time of Why Fish Fart. So gather your friends, gather everyone around your video radios for our installment. I mean, story time will continue, but story time for this book, well, we've come, look how far we've come, to the very last chapter, so appropriate for Dia de Muertos, or Dia de los Muertos, however you want to mispronounce it like I do, Deadly Details. Let's get our story time music going here on Dave's Gone By.
Tell me a story, tell me a story, tell me a story. Remember what you said. You promised me, you said you would. You gotta give in, so I'll be good. Tell me a story, then I'll go to bed.
Oh, yeah, story time. So I don't, for those of you who watch the show week after week, I always tell how this segment began. It was when we were having our Subaru, our dear beloved and now departed Subaru, having their brakes worked on about 2 or 3 years ago. I was in the gas station, picked up a children's book, and was just like so amazed that this book would be in a gas station. It was called A Cow for Hansel, written in the late 1960s about this pre-World War I German feudal kid trying to buy a cow for his family. How can I not, right? So we ended up reading the book cover to cover on the air for weeks on end. And usually we do a lot shorter book, something I can get through in 1 or 2 times. But I couldn't resist this nonfiction book of gross but true things you'll wish you didn't know by Francesca Gould. It's called Why Fish Fart. And let's do the last few pages, shall we? We shall. Can medicine be derived from corpses? Now, even the very asking of that question makes me think, yes, it can, but let's see. The dead have long been seen as potentially useful to the living, especially to help cure illness and prolong lives. As far back as 1550 BC, there's records of human brains being cut up and used to cure eye ailments. Okay, according to an ancient Egyptian medical test. Okay, well, I guess a smart person was in class a good pupil. Yeah. Okay, in ancient Rome, epileptic patients were often prescribed several doses of human liver, which was usually taken from a gladiator, because gladiators were considered to be especially strong and courageous. Gladiator, because she was tasty. The ancient Roman philosopher Celsus wrote, and he did this in Fahrenheit, in fact, he wrote in his book De Medicina that epileptics would be cured if they drank the blood of a slain gladiator. Okay, all right, this is why we don't read Celsius the way we do, or Aristotle anymore. Though through the ages, rented lips, through the ages, in many different cultures, parts of dead bodies have been used as medicinal cures. For example, a cure for ulcers, goiters, cysts, and diseases like tuberculosis was to touch a dead man's hand, preferably someone who died a premature death. Public executions attracted large crowds, and people gathered in the hope that a hangman would let them touch the hand of a still warm victim as he dangled from the rope. And then they would pay the hangman for this privilege. An enterprising executioner at Newgate Prison in London developed a similar and profitable sideline. I think you can guess where this is going. He chopped off his victims' hands and sold them. Hangmen also made money from selling remedies made of herbs and human fat from their victims. So the Nazis had nothing on any of these people. During the 1600s and 1700s, people in Denmark believed that fresh blood would cure epilepsy. What is it with epilepsy and blood? They flocked to public hangings and stood by the condemned in the hope they'd catch some blood in a cup. In the 1680s, human skulls were sold in London. They were grated into a fine powder consumed by people. And then in 1721, the dispensatory of the Royal College of Physicians was recommending, quote, 3 drams of human skull to help epilepsy. It's about a teaspoon of skull. Okay, I guess they were getting ahead of themselves. Yeah. True stories here. The incredibly well-preserved state of Egyptian mummies led European doctors from the Middle Ages onward to sell mummy parts as medication. In the 1100s, European doctors ground mummies into a powder, which they advised was to be drunk as a tea or used in a poultice for numerous health benefits. And it was prescribed for ailments ranging from coughs, nausea, epilepsy, migraines, and continence. Now, do you want to wear a diaper? Do you want to have your office cubicle near a bathroom? No, I'm just going to eat some ground up mummy instead. It's so much simpler. Migraines, gout, bruises, even fractures. And when mummy was in short supply, they used daddy. Okay. Unscrupulous mummy suppliers quickly mummified the bodies of executed prisoners to be sold as ancient mummies. Now, King Charles II in the 1600s rubbed powder from Egyptian mummies onto his skin all over his body. He thought it would promote longevity and transmit ancient greatness. Well, he lived from 1630 to 1685, 1670, 85. He was my age when he died, so much for the mummy powder. Unsurprisingly, there's no evidence that eating any part of a mummy can actually help cure anything. So it's astonishing that its use continued until the 17th century. It fell out of favor mainly because of problems associated with consuming it. French surgeon Ambrose Paré wrote that, quote, not only does this wretched drug do no good, why do you make him Italian? Not only does this wretched drug do no good, but it causes great pain to the stomach, gives foul-smelling breath, and brings on serious vomiting. And that is why we don't eat mummies today. Well, who knew? Where can you find a bone chapel. No, it's not going to be X-rated here. If you fancy a gruesome family day out, why not visit the Chapel of Skulls in Czerna, Poland? As the name suggests, this church displays many bones. In fact, the walls are lined with 3,000 skulls and other bones. The ceiling is densely covered with hundreds of human skulls, each positioned above 2 crossed leg bones. So there are more than 20,000 skulls stored in the vaults. The chapel was the innovative idea of a local Czech parish priest who created it in 1776. Why? Let's find out why. As a memorial to those who had lost their lives in the wars of the 16 and 1700s. This popular attraction also contained the bones of some of the victims of the many cholera epidemics that plagued the area. Can you imagine, like, sitting there, let's say this was an ancient version of a sukkah in Czechoslovakia. You're sitting there, you're trying to have a little honey cake, a little cup of coffee, cup of tea, and like a badly affixed skull falls on you from the ceiling. That would kind of ruin my holiday. I don't know about you. Another macabre chapel called the Capella dos Ossos, or the, well, dos Ossos, I guess is bones, or the Bone Chapel, can be found in Évora, Portugal. Built in the 15th century by Franciscan monks, decorated with human bones and skulls from about 5,000 bodies from local cemeteries. The bones are held together by cement, and they cover the walls and pillars of the chapel. The chapel also contains 2 dried-out leathery corpses. Make sure they got Siegfried and Roy, hanging from the ceiling, but their identities are unknown. Beneath the city of Rome lie hundreds of tunnels that extend for miles, containing the buried remains of tens of thousands of people. If you ever saw, it's funny, I mentioned Giancarlo Giannini earlier. One of my favorite films of all time is Seven Beauties. And there's actually a scene about the tunnels under Rome where, 6 bodies go in and suddenly they find 12 bodies later. It's kind of a great film if you've never seen it. But rows of tightly packed bones are piled on the floor, from floor to ceiling, and have remained there for almost 2,000 years. In the 2nd century, Christians started burying their dead underground, and the catacombs continued to function as cemeteries until the 5th century. The bones mostly belonged to Christians, but the catacombs also housed the bones of Jews and pagans. Burials of early Christians involved wrapping the body in a sheet or shroud and putting it in a niche cut out of the rock. The niche would then be sealed with tiles and fixed with mortar or slab of marble, upon which the name of the deceased would be engraved. Some of the tunnels are open to the public for guided tours. Who needs Disneyland? I'm telling you. What happened when Will.i.am the Conqueror, his corpse was placed into his tomb? The guy who lived in the early thousands became King William I following his conquest of England at the Battle of Hastings. As a young man, William was so fit he could jump onto his horse when dressed in full armor. Later in life, he piled on the pounds and became grossly overweight. Okay? When King Philip of France made some spiteful comments about William being too fat, William set fire to the small French town of Mantes in France. As the fire burned, William's horse stepped onto a hot cinder and slipped. William was thrown forward and fell onto the point of this saddle, therefore sustaining a nasty injury that caused internal bleeding. He died 6 weeks later. As Williams was large and decomposed, he should have just thrown into the fire and used his fat for a poultice. As William was a large fellow and decomposing his body caused it to swell, it became too big to fit inside the stone tomb. Legend has it 2 soldiers had to stand on the body to push it in. In their desperation to cram it in, they jumped up and down. Oh my God! Are you listening to this, folks? Okay, they were pushing his body into the tomb. It wouldn't go. They started jumping up and down on his fat corpse and broke the spine. The broken spine. The broken spine pierced the stomach, and because of the accumulation of gases, William exploded. Oh, come on. Do it in my best Gene Shepherd voice. Here we go. And the body exploded, splattering the poor soldiers with rotting flesh. The smell was so putrid that everyone, including priests, rushed out of the church to get some fresh air. Oh my God! That's like the best story in the whole book, and they saved it for like 3 pages from the end. Oh my goodness. They jumped up and down on his corpulent corpse, made him fall on a spear puncture. He had a problem with being punctured by things. Everything, all the gas came out, all the entrails. Oh my God. Oh, wow. I don't know if I should probably stop here. I should stop here for a moment and remind you that you're watching Dave's Gone By on this Saturday, November 2nd, 2019. I'm Dave Lefkowitz. We do this show every Saturday from 9 until noon or thereabouts. It's our 719th show, and we've got a bit more to go. We're going to finish this book. We just have a couple of pages left. We've also got our Colorado Limerick of the Damned, and I want to pay tribute to friends of the Daverhood, so don't go away. Who was the woman who died 3 times? We're reading that in this book. True story of a woman who supposedly died thrice. Even with all the advances made by medical science today, doctors can still misdiagnose death. In 2000, a documentary called Premature Burial was made about, quote, the woman who died 3 times. By the time she was 65 years old, Alison Burchell of England had been pronounced on 3 separate occasions in her life. In 1952, when she was 17, she collapsed unconscious in a movie theater, rushed to the hospital, pronounced dead. However, despite her body being paralyzed, she was able to see and hear clearly and aware of all the conversations being held by nurses as they prepared her body and took her to the mortuary. However, we're about to. Thankfully, after about half an hour, she recovered and was then subjected to numerous tests which revealed she suffered from severe narcolepsy. Now, this disorder has symptoms that include overwhelming drowsiness, sudden attacks of sleep, and cataplexy, which is a sudden loss of muscle control and can cause short-term paralysis. Narcolepsy can leave patients totally paralyzed, even though they're fully conscious and able to understand everything going on around them. I guess, when you sleep and you're having dreams, you realize that you're in a paralytic state, which can be terrifying. Well, a few years later, Burchell suffered another attack and woke up in a mortuary surrounded by dead bodies. In the 1970s, she moved to Australia and suffered a 3rd attack. Again, she was pronounced dead, but her teenage son convinced hospital staff not to place her body in the airtight refrigeration unit yet. Burchell described the sensation. You can see and hear everything going on around you, but there's no way to convey to anyone that you're not dead. It's the most terrifying thing imaginable. Thankfully, Burchell wasn't put into refrigeration and once again made a full recovery. Now, this documentary was made in 2000, and they don't this woman might still actually be alive. I just figured by the time she should just carry one of those things like deaf people used to give on the subway, like I am deaf, or in the Joker movie, which I haven't seen. He's like, please excuse my inappropriate laughter. I can't help it. She might have, by the second time this happened, might have gone to all her neighbors or just carried around wherever she went. Please excuse my death. It is premature. It hasn't happened yet, even though it appears to me I'm not dead. Well, appears to me dead. I'm feel happy. Monty Python fans. Anyway, we are finishing the book Why Fish Fart here on Dave's Gone By. What is a waiting mortuary? Oh God, this is going to be awful. What is a waiting mortuary? During the 17th and 18th centuries, the rudimentary nature of medicine meant that there was a risk that people who were comatose or otherwise incapacitated were being misdiagnosed as dead. Consequently, many people in Europe and America were terrified of being prematurely buried, right? A German physician named Christoph Wilhelm Hofeland also took a great interest in premature burial, and he believed that a body decaying was the only certain sign of death. He also thought that when a person died, they first entered into a state of deep unconsciousness or a death trance, which was not always fatal. It happens in a lot of teenagers' parties. A person could sometimes awaken from this state, which meant there was a risk they might be buried alive. To solve the problem, in 1791, Hufvudstadt built a, quote, waiting mortuary in Weimar, Germany. This consisted of a corpse chamber with 8 beds. A fire was continually kept alight, and steam from boiling water was fed through the underground pipes to the chamber. This would make sure that any bodies that actually were dead would rot quickly and prove they weren't alive. To help disguise the smell of rotting flesh, bouquets of flowers were placed around the beds. Additionally, there was an attendant employed to look out for signs of life, in case any bodies turned out to have merely been in a death trance. Each body had a bell attached to its finger, and the attendants were asked to listen for the bell. According to reports, these bells would ring often because the corpses would move and expand as they decomposed. Another gruesome and smelly job, because there was a whole big long chapter in this book about horrible, miserable jobs, of the attendant was to clean up the mess associated with rotting corpses. These waiting mortuaries turned out to have another benefit. As well as removing the risk of premature burial, that's the big one, the grieving family didn't have to keep the body in the home. After the discovery of the heartbeat as a clear sign of life or death, the fear of being prematurely buried diminished. The last German waiting mortuaries were closed in the late 1890s. That's how long they lasted. And we have actually Cynthia, who was playing our trivia quiz before. She has got a message for us. This isn't the first time a person has been pronounced dead when he or she was actually alive. In January this year, in January, a prisoner in northern Spain was declared dead by 3 different doctors, and then he was later found snoring on the autopsy table. In another case that occurred in 2014, a 90-year-old woman in Poland was declared dead and spent 11 hours in a mortuary before staff discovered her body bag moving, and they found her alive, according to the BBC. Well, I mean, I guess that is a Polish sleeping bag, let's be honest. We got one last part of a chapter here, and then we finish. We actually finish Why Fish Fart here on Dave's Gone By. What is a safety coffin? Waiting mortuaries were not the only innovation designed to protect people against being buried prematurely. From the mid-1800s through the early 1900s, a number of coffin alarm devices were patented. In the 1850s, George Bateson made a lot of money from his very successful safety coffin, which was marketed as the Bateson's Life Revival device. Ooh. The device consisted of a bell with a rope, which led through the lid of the coffin and was tied to the corpse's hand through the lid of the coffin. Makes a lot of sense. If the corpse awakened, it could simply ring the bell for assistance. Queen Victoria awarded Bateson the Order of the British Empire for his services to the dead. And during the Victorian age, his invention and other coffin bell alarms could be found in many of the new graves and cemeteries far and wide. And what a marvelous way to close this book, close this chapter of Storytime, because of course earlier in the show when we were doing Greeley Crimes in Old Times, there was a story of a guy who was actually dead in England, but he pre-rigged his coffin so that there would be his voice emanating from it, and then having a little gag as a last laugh, as it were, quite literally. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have finished Why Fish Fart by Francesca Gould. We thank her so much for, not that we got permission from her, but it was really fun to share all these disgusting and horrible facts and figures here on Dave's Gone By. Very proud to do so. And then next week, we're going to move on to, I know, sad, probably Cynthia and Jeff or somebody sending up sad faces that this is the end of the book. But, we'll find another book for you in a week or two and do more of Storytime here on Dave's Gone By with me, Dave Lefkowitz. We're here every Saturday doing the show. I want to let you know that we've got some cool guests coming up on the program in the weeks ahead. Been trying for a whole bunch of different people, not hearing a lot that is confirmed yet. But We should have Matt Williams next week. He's a guy who's written for a whole bunch of television shows. Show should be a lot of fun to talk to. I shouldn't have mentioned that because it's not 100% fixed yet, but I think it's about 99% there. So yeah, it'll be a lot of fun because we talk to other writers and script writers and television people, and it's always fascinating to me to hear about what goes on in the writing room and what it's like to write for network television. So Matt Williams should be here next Saturday, the 9th, on Dave's Gone By. And then on the 16th, this is kind of cool, Pete and Maura Kennedy, aka the Kennedys, this married couple who have been making folk, bluesy, jazzy music for many, many years. They're actually coming to my neck of the woods, our local library here, in mid to late November. So we're going to have the Kennedys on this program. Most likely on our November 6th episode, on that Saturday morning. And then at the very tail end of November, on November 30th, we can announce this. It's going to be live on the show. Very excited. Rabbi Saul Solomon will be talking with rock, pop, folk, and rockabilly musician Steve Forbert. Remember Little Stevie Orbit and Romeo's Tune and Going Down the Laurel? Yeah, he's still at it. He's going to be appearing in New York. So Steve Forbert going to be in the Daverhood on the last Saturday of November. So we do get some great guests here on Dave's Gone By. And of course, we've had some great guests in the past. Now, just today, we had, of course, Darren Lee Cole, the artistic director of Soho Playhouse. He was on the show earlier talking about the show he's directing called Games that you can watch at the Soho Playhouse now through November 24th. He's a friend of the Daverhood. Rabbi Saul Solomon is, of course, a friend of the Daverhood. He was on our very first program. We like to keep tabs of the people who have been on this show in the past in a segment called Friends of the Daverhood. So, yeah, I can play a little more music. I can keep the Haydn going. It's public domain. So, yeah, by the way, Cynthia is asking November 6th or 16th. It should be, November 6th is this week. So, no, we're looking at Matt Williams for the 9th of November, the Kennedys for the 16th, the Saturday, and then Steve Forbert on the 30th. Okay, so let's tell you a little bit of our friends of the Daverhood. For example, Ghostlight Records, which puts out a lot of show tunes and cast albums, has released the Manhattan Class Company original cast recording of a show called Alice by Heart, which is a musical by Duncan Sheik and our friend Stephen Sater. They, of course, worked on Spring Awakening, which is a big, quite marvelous musical show. And I was listening on Spotify to some of Alice by Heart, and I quite like it. It's an adaptation, another adaptation musically of Alice in Wonderland. And apparently it didn't necessarily work all the way on stage, but I do like some of the music of it. Well, it's already there on Spotify, or you can buy it through Amazon. Usual places that you get your music now. Ghostlight Records with Alice by Heart, with our friend Stephen Sater. Congratulations to my theater critic and journalist friend Andy Probst. He's got a new book out. It's called The 100 Most Important People in Musical Theater, published by Rowman and Littlefield, that has just come out. Also, I'll let you know, our friends Eric Comstock and Barbara Fasano, they're married, they sing together, and they will be doing so tonight at Birdland, and they'll be singing the songs of Charles Strauss and our other friend, Sheldon Harnick. So we got a three-bagger in that one. Congrats to them. Go see them. Tomorrow, Sunday, is your last chance to see Duet for One. It's a 7-minute play written by our recent friend Edward Einhorn, and you can see that at the Torn Page Salon on West 22nd Street. Want to let you know that this is your last chance this weekend to see our friend Dakin Matthews playing the judge on Broadway in To Kill a Mockingbird at the Shubert Theater. The show is going on, but Dakin Matthews is leaving to do other things. On November 7th, one of our most beloved guests in the Daverhood of all time, Christine Lavin, is going to be appearing with John Gorka, another friend of the Daverhood, also Cliff Eberhardt and Cheryl Wheeler. They're all going to be at Tarrytown Music Hall. That is on November 7th, this week. On November 7th, 8th, and 9th, our friend Melissa Errico is appearing at 54 Below. For more information, go to 54below.com. A Christmas Carol. They're doing a version of A Christmas Carol on Broadway at the Lyceum Theater. That starts this week, November 7th, and runs through early January, and it features our friend LaShans as the Ghost of Christmas Present. I want to also remind you, let's see, speaking of Ghostlight Records and Melissa Errico again, her album Le Grand Affaire, because she knew Michel Legrand and sang a lot of his songs, Le Grand Affaire is being released by Ghostlight Records on the 8th. That's this Friday. Also on Friday at 8 o'clock. Oh, this is so cool. Oh my God. Ben Modell, the pianist, the musician, is accompanying Buster Keaton's movie The General at the Patchogue Theater on Long Island. And, I'm a big silent film aficionado. Ben is 20 times more of an aficionado than I am. And his big thing is accompanying, not just helping restore and find silent films, but then going to play and accompanying them, very often a Keaton film. And Keaton's The General. Well, he's doing it at the Patchogue Theater this Friday. Now through November 10th, so next weekend, Christine Petty is in the last days of summer at the George Street Playhouse in New Brunswick, New Jersey. Richard Nelson's new play, The Michaels, continues the saga of the Gabriels that is happening at the Public Theater now through the middle of November, and I believe it got a very good review in the New York Times, by the way. Ethan McSweeney is directing the Willard Suitcases at his theater in Virginia. That is now through December 1st. We mentioned Little Shop of Horrors, the revival at the West Side Theater with music by Alan Menken. Hadestown on Broadway features Tony winner Andre DeShields. That is at the Walter Kerr Theater. Hamilton has our friend Daniel Breaker. He plays Aaron Burr in this show at the Richard Rodgers Theater. Come From Away by Irene Sankoff and David Hine, who were on one of our Tony shows about 2 or 3 years ago. That is at the Gerald Schoenfeld Theater. Moulin Rouge features Danny Burstein at the Hirschfeld Theater. On Broadway at the Marquis Theater, Tootsie has a score by David Yazbek and features our friend Julie Halston. So there's a twofer on that one as well. Tim Caruso's Cast Party every Monday night at Birdland. Go see that. Evan Seplow is the founder and editor of the website StageBuddy.com. If you want to find out about New York nightlife, I want to let you know that Charlie Gross and Leslie Hoban Blake co-host the theater review show 2 on the Aisle. You can watch that on Manhattan Neighborhood Network, or they post the shows also on YouTube. So just look for Charlie Gross and Leslie Hoban Blake, and look for Eva Heineman and her theater review show High Drama, also on MNN Network once every other week. And of course, Bob Cudmore doing podcasts of upstate New York history at bobcudmore.com. And those, my friends, are the friends of the Daverhood. Well, it is about 20 after noon in the afternoon here on this Saturday, November 2nd, 2019. We're about to finish up this edition of Dave's Gone By, but just a little bit more thing, because how could I end the show without doing our Colorado Limerick of the Damned? Now, this is something we've been doing for a year and a half now, 2 years, I think, on the show. Every week, I offer a poem, handwritten, handcrafted poem about some town or city or municipality or burg in Colorado, where my wife and I had been living for about 9 years prior to moving back to New York. So, been going through the wiki page and other pages about places in Colorado, coming up with poem after poem after poem for you. And today we're going to be going to Ouray, Colorado, O-U-R-A-Y, for our Colorado Limerick of the Damned.
A limerick is a comic verse of 5 lines, in which lines 1, 2, and 5 will end with words that rhyme. And likewise, verses 3 and 4 also end with words that rhyme. So this is a limerick. Rocky Mountain, Colorado.
Yes, indeed. So our Colorado Limerick of the Damned, I do warn the kiddies, if there are kiddies watching, that sometimes these can get a little risque or outré. Our Colorado Limerick of the Damned can. It's a small town, Ouray is, in southwest Colorado, but it's got both alpine mountain conditions and hot springs. So that's kind of neat. In fact, it has been dubbed the Switzerland of America, that I don't know if they make any decent chocolate there. Ouray was a gold and silver mining town named after Ute tribe chief Ouray. We got this information here from OurayColorado.com. Ouray County may just hold the title for the most craft brewers per capita in Colorado. I guess the good mountain spring water or something. All of Main Street is a historic district, and tourism brings lots of outdoorsy type fun. And so many of the towns and places in Colorado that we do in our Colorado Limerick of the Damned are the places that bring the hikers and the canoeists and the mountain jumpers and things like that. So this is one of those as well, to the San Juan Mountains by Ouray. Let's see, part of the original John Wayne True Grit was shot there, and Ouray actually influenced Ayn Rand's book Atlas Shrugged. Most important, fictionally, MacGyver's grandfather lived there, and exteriors for the very first episode of MacGyver were shot in Ouray, Colorado. Wow. So, without further ado or a don't, let's get to our Colorado Limerick of the Damned for Ouray, Colorado. A giddy young pervert from Ouray loved watching gay porn on his Blu-ray. He'd sit on his thumb, and when actors would come, he'd wiggle it round and shout, "Hooray!" Yes, that's our Colorado Limerick of the Damned for today, November 2nd, 2019. Send your cards and complaint letters to Dave Lefkowitz, and send them by email to davesgoneby@aol.com. davesgoneby@aol.com, or post them right here on our Facebook page, Dave's Gone By. Remember, the most important thing, the most wonderful thing that you could do is tell other people. Tell your Facebook friends, or if you have friends who aren't on Facebook, to join. It's free, right? And they're just stealing some of your personal information, but you get to watch this program every Saturday live from 9 until noonish or thereabouts. And of course, you should know that you can keep scrolling back and back and back and see more than a year and a half now of video Dave's Gone By episodes. So even if you miss them live, you go to our Facebook page and there it is. Plus, if you want to really delve into our archives, you're going to want to go to davesgoneby.com, because every show we've ever done that we've been able to salvage, which is about 715 of our 719 shows, these are all there at my website, davesgoneby.com. The first 15 years are audio only, of course, but the last year and a half, they're the videos too, as well as audio files there for your listening pleasure. Plus, we've even separated out the interviews that we've done with all these friends of the Daverhood. So if you just want to hear those interviews, those are there too. It's all great stuff. All the skits we've done back in the day, for the first 12 years, more than that, we played tons of music. Not in the first few years when our show was very short, but once we expanded to 3 hours and we were on college radio, we started doing Saturday segues and playing music too, which we can no longer do because of Facebook and YouTube rules. But those old shows are there in full on davesgoneby.com. You're going to want to check that out. You're going to want to check out my Twitter handle, Radio Dave 2, and why not check out the Rabbi's handle as well. It's at Rabbi Sol Solomon, SOLSOLOMON. And check out the Rabbi's website, of course, shalomdammit.com, shalomdammit.com. You notice that the Rabbi was asking some very leading questions of Darren Lee Cole regarding getting Shalom Dammit, his one-man show, up in New York again. They had a reading about 2 months ago. It went really well. Now we're figuring out, how to bring it to that next step in New York. So to even see that show, Shalom Dammit, you can see an early long version of the Rabbi's stage show at shalomdammit.com. You can also watch his TV show there and read his rabbinical reflections, shalom, DAWMIT.com. Well, what else do I have to tell you? I want to thank one more time a few people. First of all, thank you so much to my darling and adorable and wonderful wife, Joyce, for everything, and also for spending the first hour or so of the program with us in the Daverhood. Love you to pieces, dear, and I'm going to miss you for a week or two when you go back to Colorado, and then catch you in Austin, so yay. Thank you very, very much, of course, to Darren Lee Cole. You're going to want to see his direction of the play Games that is running at the Soho Playhouse. It's 15 Van Dam Street. And as I started the show talking about how I get lost in downtown Manhattan and in the Village because they stopped numbering the streets and avenues, it's okay. It's easy. It's right off 6th Avenue, okay? You get off the Spring Street E train and it's 1 block away, 15 Van Dam Street. And that is a place where today, tomorrow, and up through November 24th, you can watch this acclaimed drama called Games, directed by Darren Lee Cole. And of course, you're supporting Darren by seeing whatever show that he either puts into or that rents the Soho Playhouse on Van Dam. We thank him so much for being with us in the Daverhood. Thank you also to Joe Trentacosta of JT Public Relations for setting up that interview. Really, really appreciate it. Thank you to Rabbi Sal Solomon for conducting that interview. Thank you so much to all of you for watching and listening. So as I said, next Saturday, November 9th, we're expecting Matt Williams, the TV writer, in the Daverhood to talk about his career. And then in the weeks ahead, Pete and Maura Kennedy going to be with us on, not the 16th. No, we're going to have them on another date. Sorry. And then Steve Forbert on the 30th of November. Blah, blah, blah. 3.5 hours of pure talking, pure enjoyment. I've loved it. Hope you've enjoyed it. Hope you had a good Halloween. Hope we're rolling into a cool but sunny and nice beginning to this month, to November. We mentioned, interestingly enough, Dave J. The guy's name is David J. Gerstein, and he was on the show many years ago, promoting his one-man show called John, Paul, George, Ringo, where he played all 4 of the Beatles, kind of answering questions that you would ask the Mop Tops. And he did that at Soho Playhouse, among other places. Well, Dave was a real cool guy, and he did up some bumpers and some music for Dave's Gone By back in the day, and created this bumper music that we're going to go out with. It's the There Goes the Daverhood song. So everybody have a wonderful week, and I will, God willing, see you a week from now with a brand new edition, our 720th of the show, and Gone By.
Days gone by, days gone by, days gone by, days gone by, days gone by.
So brand new potato. What did you think of the show? You didn't mention ketchup once. Not. Well, yeah, all right, but maybe next week we'll have a potato news. Yeah, guess I'll have to watch next week then. That's right, potato, and all of you as well. Bye to all of you, and have a great week. Gone by.